Hi, I'm Tom Scioli, and welcome to the fantastic first issue of the Micronauts. They came from inner space. There's a new collection. Marvel has the rights to a new reprint of the Micronauts. It's one of those things that securing the rights was very difficult. These Micronauts comics have been out of print since, I guess, the 80s. They did like a Baxter paper reprint edition in the 80s, and I think that's the last time these stories saw print. Until that new edition comes out from Marvel, the only way you could get these comics is from the back issue bins, which is how I got it. The cover here is by Dave Cockrum, inked by Al Milgrom, the editor of this series, and then further down the road he becomes the inker. Great cover. Again, the first thing you think of with this is Star Wars, and that's what they were going for. Star Wars, the movie, was a big hit by this point. It's 1978. And Star Wars, the comic, was a big hit for Marvel. So it's like, okay, let's make another Star Wars. I don't know if that was, something that came down from above, bring us another Star Wars, or if it was just sort of something that was floating in the air in the back of the minds of a lot of creators. And it just happened to influence Bill Mantlo and Michael Golden. The story as it goes is that Bill Mantlo was, playing with the Micronauts toys with his son on Christmas morning, the new Micronauts toys his son got, and he started kind of making up a story, who is the time traveler, who's this guy, who's that guy, and it eventually became this story. That's the legend, at least. I pitched a Micronauts series to IDW, and it's, looking back, it's kind of interesting because it's before I did Jack Kirby, The Epic Life of the King of Comics, and before I did I Am Stan, a graphic biography of the legendary Stan Lee. And both of those books are available for pre-order by following the pre-order link in the show notes below. But it was before I worked on either of those books. And my pitch was kind of a combination of the sort of, sci-fi action adventure comics that I had been doing up to that point, a combination of those, and then also biographical comics about comics creators, and then also autobiography. And so the idea was for my Micronauts, Tom Scioli's Micronauts, the story of the comic would be me trying to make a Micronauts comic in 2018 or whatever year it was, trying to figure out how to make a Micronauts comic when IDW did not have the rights to all the characters. Marvel has half the characters and Hasbro has the other half of the characters. So it's kind of, hard to coordinate those two things, which is why it's been out of print for so long. And it would be me addressing that challenge and then just addressing the creative challenge of, I'm trying to make Micronauts interesting in 2018 to a new audience, an audience that has probably never heard of them. And so the comic would have that story, the sort of autobio portion. It would also have, the story of Bill Mantlo, on Christmas morning with his son, and the creation of the original Micronauts comic with him and Michael Golden. That would also be a portion of this, series that I proposed. And then the third portion of it would be the actual, Micronauts story that I come up with, the actual action adventure, sci-fi epic. And so it would be these things, interspersed with each other. So to me, it was, it would be like a new type of comic that had not previously existed, with those sort of three threads coming together. I'm really sorry it never happened because I think it would have been very interesting, but obviously I went on to other things, Jack Kirby, The Epic Life of the King of Comics, and I Am Stan, a graphic biography of the legendary Stan Lee, sort of satisfying my desire to work on biographical comics about comics creators. And then I've also, been working on my little action adventure stuff too. So I've been able to scratch all those itches, but I haven't been able to scratch all of them in the same project. The reason it's a Dave Cockrum cover instead of a Michael Golden cover, Michael Golden is the penciler of the first 12 issues of Micronauts, is that Michael Golden actually did a cover for this, which they eventually, reprint as a pinup in one of the issues. Really great art, very innovative. It's just, I feel like what Michael Golden was doing was so ahead of the curve and ahead of its time, it kind of scared Marvel editorial a little bit. And so they wanted somebody to do a sort of like meat and potatoes Marvel kind of cover, which this definitely is. Nothing against this cover and nothing against the other cover. It's just, that one is the Michael Golden one is much more experimental, much more cutting edge and avant-garde, where this is just, like a, really nice, sort of comic booky cover. And there's Baron Karza up in the corner box. So this kind of puts you in that era. We have the energized Spider-Man figure, the energized Green Goblin figure from Remco. So we're in an era of sort of toys and licensing and Marvel's ascendancy. And now Marvel is sort of taking on these sorts of assignments. Stan Lee presents Micronauts. Bill Mantlo, writer, storyteller. Michael Golden, storyteller, artist. So I think that's what this credit is supposed to imply, that Bill Mantlo is providing the verbiage and part of the storytelling, and then Michael Golden is providing part of the storytelling and all of the art. Joseph Rubinstein, embellisher. Al Milgrom, editor. Jim Shooter, editor-in-chief. So yeah, Al Milgrom is editing from the start, and he will eventually become the inker. And then Tom Orzechowski, letterer. Glenn S. Wine, colorist. And the lettering is phenomenal. This is a very, it might be hard to see today in 2023, but in 1978, this is a very innovative comic, innovative in a lot of ways. And again, something like this, a toy licensed comic, I know it myself from working on Transformers versus G.I. Joe. You have a lot more leeway than you would if this team were working on Spider-Man or whatever. They'd have a lot more editorial scrutiny than they have working on this toy license, and that freedom really allows them to make a very different kind of comic. And the art looks very different. It's in some ways very refined, but in other ways very, very rough and unpolished. It's and a little bit rushed, which is not a bad thing. I think that quality often works in comics' favor, and I think it does here too. So it is, the era of Star Wars. So we have these sort of soldiers with these helmets looking a lot like the guys from the beginning of Star Wars. And Prince Argon and Princess Mary are fleeing the attacks on them. The royal family are fleeing. It's sort of, the last days on the planet of Homeworld when Baron Karza's dog soldiers are taking over. And again, it's throwing you right into the deep end of the pool, just like Star Wars. 1977, we're like, what is this? You're thrown right into the deep end of the pool, this whole other world that you've never seen before. The same thing's going on here. And the war is on. You get these little flourishes like this that are just really great. Michael Golden did better drawn or more classically better rendered, better realized drawings in stories before this comic, before this series, and after. But he's never done a series that I've connected with to the degree that I connect with this. So it's just more evidence that perfect penciling does not translate into great comics. Something else, some magical quality, and this comic has that magical quality. It's got a life, it's got a pulse. It's as much as it owes to Star Wars, it's also very original and very different. And Stan Lee he kind of scratched his head at it. He's like, I don't understand one fucking word of this thing. I don't know that he said fucking, but he didn't understand anything going on in this first issue. But it's like, okay, I'll just trust you guys know what you're doing. That the kids are gonna get it. The kids are gonna go along for the ride. But Stan was a skeptic, and yeah, this kind of thing it can go a couple different ways. But I mean, it's working for me. This figure over here, in the artist edition. When you see this figure blown up, he looks like it looks like a drawing straight out of Frank Miller's Ronin. But anyway, a lot of stuff going on here. The royal brother and sister are hiding out. They're visited by Time Traveler, this enigmatic sort of ghostly apparition who shows up from time to time. They have like an R2-D2 taking a pummeling, and then finally the Darth Vader shows up. But we're gonna do you one better. He's not just Darth Vader. He's a centaur Darth Vader. And, some of the, this is a toy license, but it departs in a big way from the toys. It really sort of has a life of its own. And in some ways, I kind of wish they would have incorporated more of the toy designs, just as a fan of the toy line and the story. But it is like very much, it becomes its own original creation. So Time Traveler looks more or less like the Time Traveler toy. And Baron Karza looks more or less like the Baron Karza toy. It's a very cool toy. It's, he's a robot, this Darth Vader looking Micronaut. And then he also has a horse, and you can mix and match body parts with him, and his horse, and he can become a centaur. It was originally the Steel Jeeg toy in Japan, and they just sort of repainted it as like a Darth Vader black and molded a new helmet. But then everything else is the same, and Steel Jeeg can do the same thing and sort of morph with his horse. And again, I really like this lettering treatment and the way it's broken up into chapters. George Lucas is one of the godfathers of this project. They are trying to do a Star Wars. You have this sort of Millennium Falcon looking ship. You have these rebel kind of soldiers. You have look at this guy coming out of the hatch. Looks like Han Solo or something coming out of the Millennium Falcon. But another one of the godfathers of this is Jack Kirby. There's a lot of Kirby in the storytelling, particularly his fourth world. And I think breaking it up into chapters, breaking up the issue into chapters kind of, gives it a little bit of that Kirby feel too, something that he did in some of his 70s work. Commander Arcturus Ran and his robot Biotron have been on a 1,000-year journey throughout the microverse, most of which was spent with him in suspended animation, which is why he's still young after a 1,000-year journey. He comes back, and the world he left is very changed, and it's become sort of militarized. This sort of fascist takeover has happened. These 2 pages are just like really phenomenal looking. And then that's one thing that will be lacking in the Marvel reprint is a lot of this comics magic comes from the pulpy newsprint method, the application of colors, which I'm assuming is not going to be replicated in the new reprint edition, unless they hired Chip Kidd to edit it or something, or gave it to Ed Piskor to recolor the way he did the reprints in the Grand Design series. But look at this face, look at that drawing. This is a new look for Marvel Comics. Marvel Comics did not look like this prior to the arrival of Michael Golden. They did not look like this. And this face, this sort of cartoony, like some would say, like a manga influence, which I think is definitely part of it. But it's also, if you think about sort of animation, if you think about like a Disney cartoon, the sort of how the more realistic sort of heroic characters and things. It's that kind of those kind of proportions, and it really but with like a sort of comic book rendering or like a manga rendering. It's a new style brought into a Marvel Comics that was probably getting a little bit set in its ways at this point. Michael Golden was there first. And so when I look at this kind of stuff, I see the influence it had on, creators like Todd McFarlane. I feel like, and I'm not alone in this, but in the belief that like Michael Golden is like the father of, the founders of Image Comics, that what he was doing, the guys at Image Comics were sort of, growing up with or coming into the business at the same time in some cases, but really taking a close look and taking close notes of what he was doing. And Art Adams as well, but Art Adams did come along a little bit after Michael Golden. So Michael Golden, has the honor of like sticking his flag in there first, and not just being first, but possibly the greatest practitioner of this mode of comics. Arcturus Ran is he realizes, he landed in a bad situation. They shoot him, not to kill apparently. He wakes up in a sort of again, we're deconstructing Star Wars. So we have a Millennium Falcon, the Endeavor. There was no Micronauts toy that looked like this. So this was a creation by Michael Golden. Really great design. You can see how it's emulating the Millennium Falcon while at the same time, and the Starship Enterprise, while creating something original. And so now we're in a sort of cantina scene. It's a prison, but there, every face is some, hideous alien, a nightmare, as it says. And we got the ads for the Star Wars figures. I love these like little drawings. So I remember the Star Wars pendants. I had a friend who had them. I wanted these Star Wars pendants really bad. Never got one. Here's Arcturus Ran in this prison. This guy's giving him a hard time, like the guy, and he looks a lot like the guy in Star Wars in the cantina who's giving Luke a hard time in a similar way and threatening him. And then Arcturus Rand gets pulled up to the ceiling, and then the guys who are intimidating him get knocked out, and it appears that these are his rescuers. He's been pulled up by a Bug and defended by a Croyer. Bug, there's no real toy that Micronauts toy that looks like him. Bill Mantlo said that some of the and I think the name of the toy that he's quote unquote modeled after is called Galactic Defender, but the toys had an insectile quality to them that he was sort of using for the basis here. But yeah, a pretty original design, which is why Bug belongs to is one of the characters that belongs to Marvel. That Marvel from time to time will use Bug, and then a Croyer is one of the toys, but they flesh him out a lot more. Golden makes him a lot more humanoid, gives him a little more bulk, a little more character than the toy. Some of the other, Croyers, some of the people from his planet that show up in this comic look a lot more like the toys. And Bug takes off his helmet, and he looks a little bit like Jack Kirby's Bug, Jack Kirby's Forager. And I think that's not unintentional. I think this is a deliberate tribute to Kirby. Micronauts is kind of like Jack Kirby's Fourth World in miniature. And so they explain the situation, everything that he's missed while he's been asleep for 1,000 years. And he's looking out the window, and there's Robotron, who's sort of the R2-D2 of the series. He is doing sort of a marionette act with this humanoid robot, this very realistic-looking robot. But as it turns out, Bug and Croyer know the secret because they are, her defenders. That's actually Princess Mary of Homeworld. She's disguising herself as a sort of robotic marionette, and that's going to be her way of sneaking off the planet. We get this nice little, again, very Star Wars-y kind of throne room situation where we have Shaitan, who is the brother of a Croyer, who has betrayed his brother, who was king of the Croyers, and has pledged the fealty of the army of the Croyers to Baron Karza, and Baron Karza is attended to by these shadow priests. Again, just really fun space opera, kind of stuff. Just my favorite kind of stuff. Convoluted. I think Gil Kane described it when Gil Kane took over as artist of this series. He described it as this sort of network of different relationships, familial relationships that sort of connect all the characters. And I think it is. There's a lot of great works that have that element, and this is one of them. Again, we get the chapter breaks with that great lettering, which is sort of charming and nostalgic now, but was state of the art back then. And so now it becomes Spartacus, and this trio is being thrown into the arena, kind of like Attack of the Clones. We get some of the vehicles that are a little closer to what the toys are, and so they have to fight that giant thing. Now, this is important. We have a Meet the Micronauts page with each of the characters drawn. Now, the comic itself, Michael Golden is drawing under super tight deadlines, so it does not have the quality of his usual work that he was doing prior to this and after this. But these little spotlights, these little headshots do. This is sort of preparatory work he was doing before the series got like fully approved or whatever. They look like $1 million. And this is a vital thing. It's a new series, and it's throwing a lot of information at you. And so to kind of help you through, it's like, here's the cast of characters. Here's the dramatis personae. The battle scenes at the beginning of this issue were really, intense and violent. And this arena scene, this sort of gladiatorial scene is pretty intense too. Really great. And again, very innovative. Like this is just stuff you weren't seeing in a Marvel comic at the time. Michael Golden, just such an innovator. And again, responsible, co-writer of this series. I mean, he did so much of the heavy lifting, and the 12 issues that he worked on are just, in terms of story, are just head and shoulders above, everything else that came after it on this series. That leads me to believe that he was probably responsible for a lot of the heavy lifting and in terms of the story of this comic. And and the interviews I've read with him, back that up too. So, I mean, he's, coming out of the gate, a young artist. This isn't his first job, but it's an early one. And he's bringing, that enthusiasm of youth and just throwing everything he's got into this. This great sort of, the emperor on his throne kind of stuff is just really great. It's a nice close up here. And then when things are getting really tough, the mysterious time traveler shows up. The time traveler is just like a really great part of this. He's sort of this, he's kind of like Metron would be in Jack Kirby's New Gods. This sort of like aloof, mystical sci-fi figure who sort of shows up from time to time and throws a monkey wrench into things. So here's the other Acroyers who do look a lot more sort of robot-like, a lot more like, modeled on the toys. Great close-up of Baron Karza. And he's like heavy metal Darth Vader. He's like Darth Vader, but he's got that sort of poodle mullet of hard rock music of the time. And Acroyer is the powerhouse. Reminds me a lot of Orion from the New Gods. So you have Arcturus Ran, and in the letters page, Bill Mantlo is talking about how Arcturus Ran, the last name Ran is with two N's. It's the planet that Adam Strange is from the DC comics. So we have sort of an Adam Strange, reference here. So I never pitched this, but one of the ideas that I was putting together as a potential pitch to DC Comics was sort of like a DC Micronauts, where it would be Adam Strange, Orion, Forager the Bug from New Gods, Beautiful Dreamer from the Forever People, on a spaceship together, traveling through the cosmos of DC Comics. Metron would appear from time to time. The fight continues. Just great stuff. They hop into Arcturus Rand's impounded spaceship, the Endeavor. Great close-up of Biotron here, which is an amazing toy. And he's one of the main characters who's sort of like closest to the toy. Like, that is what the toy looks like. Very cool toy. And then this last page is dynamite. I love the heavy shadows here, the magenta against blue. And they're making their escape. This, total Star Wars stuff. They jump into light speed, and they're able to via light speed go through the space barrier, but their pursuers get flattened like pancakes. And now they're in the far reaches of the Microverse. The Microverse, which was created by Jack Kirby and Stan Lee in issue 68 of the Fantastic Four. They referred to it as the Microverse, and later Subatomica. I think in the same issue they refer to it as the Microverse and then Subatomica, and they refer to themselves as the world's first Micronauts back in 1968, before any of this stuff existed. So, fuck off, everybody. And I note that in Fantastic Four Grand Design, Mantlo and Michael Golden are very consciously linking this to the Jack Kirby and Stan Lee Microverse, which has become an established part of the Marvel Universe, and they draw the atoms the way Jack Kirby would. These little clusters here look very Ditko, and then these look very these models look very very Kirby-esque. 6 fugitives breach the fabric of space and streak at faster than light speeds towards Earth. And again, love that font. I mean, I guess it is kind of like the Star Wars font. That R looks kind of like the Atari R. Don't dare miss our second senses-shattering issue, on sale in just 30 days. Be there. So yeah, off to a phenomenal start. And yeah, having like the whole first issue take place in this sort of exotic never land of sort of sci-fi space opera, and then ending with the tease that next they're going to Earth. Very much like New Gods #1, but just a really great winning setup. Can't wait to see what it's like when these guys get to Earth. I'm Tom Scioli, author of Jack Kirby, The Epic Life of the King of Comics, and I Am Stan, a graphic biography of the legendary Stan Lee. So this is issue 2 of the Micronauts. They came from inner space. From a war-torn microverse, they fled to Earth. They know what they're doing. They put the big star there in the corner, Baron Karza, very cool toy. This cover, it's kind of paying off on the promise of Micronauts. The first issue, was great, really exciting, but it could be like, any other space opera. It's like, well, why not just buy an issue of Star Wars? If we're just going to do straight space opera. But with issue 2, that's where you get the sort of big, pop idea, the elevator pitch of Micronauts. It's, what if all your Star Wars toys started fighting out an epic space battle in your backyard or living room or whatever. Great looking cover this time. It's by the team that's doing the art on the interior, Michael Golden and Joseph Rubinstein. And it looks incredible. And yeah, paying off on that promise, you got them running away from this, shadowy figure, just mowing his lawn. The Microverse, a subatomic solar system ruled by the tyrannical Baron Karza. Aboard the starship Endeavour, 6 intrepid fugitives flee the despot's photon patrol by warping through space wall, a barrier on the fringes of the Microverse, a barrier never before broken. Stan Lee presents The Micronauts. Commander Rand, Space Glider. Princess Mari, Marionette. Bug, Galactic Warrior. Acroyer, Microtron, Biotron. And this episode is entitled Earth. Commander, have you any idea where we are? Not in the slightest, Microtron. Oh, I see. We're getting some amazing visuals that were not typical of Marvel Comics. I've never seen a Marvel comic prior to this that looked quite like this. The figure work, the deep shadows. Time Traveler shows up. He just kind of pops into the story at odd times and sort of messes around a little bit. He seems to be a benevolent. He's a little bit mischievous, but he seems to be benevolent and always sort of helps them out of a jam or gives them a bit of advice, like a cosmic genie or something. But never does exactly what they want him to do because he's Time Traveler. He's living on a different scale and he just has a different viewpoint of things, kind of like Dr. Manhattan. And so then they crash land on this planet. They go from space warp into being like right on a planet, which was not in any of the Star Wars movies or Star Trek or anything until The Force Awakens. The Millennium Falcon goes from, hyperspace right into, being on the surface of a planet. But the Micronauts got there first. They crash land. Another great shot. Again, we see, some panels are, not quite the full bloom Michael Golden we know, and then some panels sort of point to that direction. So, we've got a couple of like just really amazing panels on this page. For space opera, you got to draw a lot of scenes, inside a spaceship, looking at view screens and stuff. And I think Michael Golden's doing an amazing job here with it. And so they land on this planet. The vegetation seems to be at a scale that's, way larger than is normal for a planet. Another, pinup or ad or whatever. And again, it looks like it could be a rejected cover for issue 1. Looks amazing. Again, it's a little funkier than your average Marvel cover. So I don't know if that maybe is what, possibly made it get shelved, but, really, really nice imagery there.
I especially like this little corner up here with the shadow priests and those tiny Croyer figures. So now they've landed on this mysterious planet. Great figure work, great body language, and then they find signs of life, a giant man-made structure, and they're wondering what it could be. And in sort of Star Trek fashion, they're wondering if it might be some vast religious object or temple, some object of worship. And then you got to turn a couple pages to get the reverse angle and see it's a a swing set, a backyard swing set. I don't know if it's been a long time since swing sets looked like this. When I was a kid, we had a swing set more or less exactly like this. I think instead of those little hand grips there, we had like a teeter-totter on it. But again, I loved my backyard swing set. I played on it all the time. And then when we moved to a new house, we moved from a house that had a swing set in the backyard to a house that did not have a swing set in the backyard. And at the time, I could not imagine why anybody would do that. That just seems like such a downgrade. It had this sort of like diagonal blue and white pattern running across it. Just really great memories. And a comic like this, it kind of brings it all back. Getting great close up. They're trying to figure this thing out. And they realize the scale of this tells them that this must be a land populated by giants. And then they get attacked by a giant dog. This issue is really paying off on the premise of this comic, having like your little Star Wars action figures, or in this case, your Micronaut action figures in the backyard exploring. And you can imagine how a kid could sort of act this out with their own toys. And they're marveling at the scale of the swing set. And then they're terrified of this cute family dog. And I do like, there's a bunch of different ways Michael Golden could have drawn a dog, and he could have drawn like a really terrifying dog. But I think it was smart to draw like sort of the cutest puppy-eyed dog he could manage. And then just when things are getting cute and pop, we go back to Homeworld, to this sort of sci-fi, cool-looking space opera world. And then we're explaining some of the very dystopian aspects of this world they left behind. That there's this thing called the body banks, where people go in to get their old body parts exchanged for new ones, which is also sort of tying in with the toy aspects of the Micronauts, how they have sort of interchangeable parts. You can grab, especially somebody like Baron Karza, you can grab an arm from Baron Karza and put it on Force Commander. You can take the head off of the horse and put Baron Karza's body on it and make a centaur. So Mantlo was thinking along those lines when he was first conceiving of this. And then we get, maybe one of my favorite panels of the whole series. I mean, just really this, very intense image, this whole thing of being up against this light box and at the mercy of Baron Karza and his shadow priests. Just a really, intense, really well-drawn and very original image in a sort of, sci-fi space opera epic. And that's Prince Argon, the brother of Marionette. And Baron Karza has big plans for him in the body banks. He's going to do some experimental surgery on Prince Argon, which we'll see more of in future issues. Now we're back to this, fun little chase. And now if it's not bad enough, they're running away from the dog. And now they're getting chased by a giant lawnmower, sort of the double jeopardy. The robots, Biotron and Microtron are pounding away at poor Muffin, bringing like a little more of a darker tone than you would expect from this type of scene. And then blam, Arcturus ran, sort of striking a pose. He just blasted this cute little dog in the face. I don't know quite how this would play in a movie or today, but it does sort of seem to match the tone of Micronauts, because Micronauts, it's like really fun, really exciting, really goofy, but then it's also got this dark 70s streak going through it. And then we see a demonstration of the powers of Croyer, and he's like the closest thing to like a superhero in this. He's just, got sort of like Superman strength, and he lifts up this lawnmower and throws it back on the boy who's mowing the lawn. We cut back to space, and we get like some really nice looking, shots of the space armada that is pursuing the Micronauts. And again, I like the way it's a 70s comic. The action is going to be broken up by ads. But I mean, we get these really fun 70s ads like the electronic Spider-Man toy earlier. And look at this, Shogun Warriors and the Micronauts. What a tantalizing idea. Of course, it's just talking about the two comics, but what a great crossover that would be. And then it's also broken up with these pinups and posters. Again, it's a new series, so any kind of information you can give to sort of fill in the gaps. It's nice, and to have such sort of these beautiful Michael Golden drawings. So this one describing the mystery of the time traveler, also known as the Enigma Force. And I'm sure all those posters and things were done in preparation for this series to sort of get as the pitch or as like an audition or whatever. And so they were done sort of before the heavy deadlines of the actual comic. So there's it's putting your best foot forward. They really look amazing. And so now Shaitan, who is the brother of a Croyer, who's sort of usurped his brother's throne, he's given a space armada by Baron Karza, and it's his job to chase the Micronauts. And so now the Micronauts, the excitement kind of settles down for a minute, and they get to meet this boy, and they explain their plight to him. And his name is Steve Coffin. Again, I mean, Coffin is, it's a relatively common name. It is a name. I don't know that I've ever seen a character with that last name in popular culture. If there's something I'm overlooking, please let me know. But this is the first time. And Coffin, it is an interesting name choice for the sort of upbeat boy character, the sort of reader identification character. Coffin. It's a coffin. It's a little bit of a downer. Thinking about death. But again, that seems to fit the tone of Micronauts, which does have a little like tinge of the melancholy. Interesting choice. I don't know if Bill Mantlo ever spoke on like exactly why he chose that name, or if it just sort of came to him. And he is very much the reader identification character. If they're imagining their sort of typical reader, it would be somebody Steve Coffin's age, and it would be somebody who would be sort of playing with Micronauts or Star Wars action figures or Battlestar Galactica, whatever it is, and that they'd be imagining themselves in his place, talking to these little, tiny space warriors. And now we've had a little break, and now the action heats up again. Now the bad guys show up. Shaitan and his space armada are, pouring it on, and Steve's taking a beating from these spaceships and their thorium bombs. The Micronauts are scattering. They got their little, everybody's making their little quips. Ad for Mike Zeck on Master of Kung Fu. And again, like this is a toy tie-in, but then the toys make an appearance to varying degrees. Most of the main characters don't really have like a one-to-one corresponding toy. It's a little more like some of them there's no toy at all, and then some of them it's a stretch. But then these spaceships that are part of the Space Armada are a toy in the Micronauts line, a very cool toy, and they're sort of demonstrating what they can do. They can split up into all these different pieces and launch projectiles, and so that's what they're doing. I love this panel here. Great perspective. I love Michael Golden's perspective, and I love the way he bends the rules of perspective and sort of pushes things really nicely. And they're getting chased, and everybody's sort of doing their part, and they all make their way back to the ship, back to their ship to kind of get themselves out of there. The battle's getting to be too much. And I like this panel, this sort of disorientation. One of the characters is talking about my stomach. Great little trick to create, disorientation, turn everything on a weird angle, almost upside down. Looks great. Again, a lot of, variety within just the visuals of the comic. And it takes off into hyperspace, and it's being chased by Shaitan's flagship, but this time, great use of silhouette. This imposing silhouette of a kid who's grabbed a rake, and then he smacks the ship with it. I mean, a really nice balance between those space opera elements and the sort of your own backyard elements. And hopefully this, revival, this reprinting of Micronauts over at Marvel maybe signifies some kind of hope for, some kind of, TV show or movie, streaming series based on the Micronauts. Because Micronauts so far has never gotten that and is, really deserving of it. And I would love to see this kind of stuff acted out in a cinematic scene, this, having sort of like a, like an epic space battle going on, weaving in and out among, the swings and the slide and your little, suburban backdrop. It's something we haven't really quite seen. It'd be a lot of fun. We had like Honey, I Shrunk the Kids and stuff, but like imagine Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, but then, they climb into an X-Wing or a TIE fighter or something. That hit was a tough one. Shaitan, orders them to go into hyperspace before they crash, and it looks like they made it. Looks like they made it into hyperspace, but just barely. And Steve Coffin's backyard is like a war zone. It's a jungle war zone at this point. And it's, how am I gonna tell Dad? Just really great note to end things on. Next month, Death Duel at Daytona Beach. Don't miss it. So now we're gonna, extend this into town. Man, what a what a cool little snapshot of an era.
So it's issue 3 of the Micronauts. They came from inner space. Death Duel at Daytona Beach. Great Michael Golden cover. A lot of cool stuff going on as the Micronauts tear up the town. We get the cast of characters. Again, new series. This helps, getting the, showing this like, varied cast of characters, each one very strange looking, to give us a little refresher of who's who. And after issue 2, the question is like, where do you pick up from? And so we pick up right from, Steve Coffin in his backyard. The whole place is on fire, a mess. His dad comes home. He was wondering, what's Dad gonna say? Now he finds out. Stephen, what in heaven's name did you do to our yard? And we got Bill Mantlo, Michael Golden, and Joseph Rubenstein as writers, storytellers, and artists. We get Alan Milgram as editor, Jim Shooter as editor-in-chief, John Costanza letters, Carl Gafford colors. And at this point, the comic feels like it's getting into a groove. And, having the Micronauts on Earth it works. Ray Coffin, Steve's dad. Steve, Muffin isn't moving. They only stunned her, Dad, when she attacked them. Interesting choice. I do think that, just sort of the dog owners that I know, they'd probably be a lot more upset that a bunch of little aliens stunned their dog to the point where it looks like it's dead. And again, you could maybe in a retelling of this story, maybe expand on it, maybe have his dad get kind of freaked out, like, oh, did my son do this? Is my son some kind of, serial killer in training, starting with the family dog. But this isn't that kind of comic. It could be, but it isn't. Yeah, and Steve Coffin would be like a good name for a serial killer character, maybe 2 on the nose. He's explaining to his dad about these little aliens that came down, and he's like, Steve's always been highly imaginative, especially since his mother died, but this? So yeah, Dad's not buying the story. And we see Bug in the tussle from previous issue. He got sort of left behind. He's just sort of waking up. You don't believe me? You think I'm lying? Now, Steve, that's just that all this carnage. Tell me what really happened, son. I won't get angry. I swear it. And then Dad steps on something in the backyard, and he takes a look. It's one of the crashed spaceships with one of the Acroyers inside. And at first he thinks, why, it's some kind of model, a toy. Good Lord. Ray Coffin sees the limp figure twisted in the tiny cockpit, and he knows it's no toy. So Dad's convinced now. Dad's seen the evidence of the shattered microverse people in his backyard. And now the Endeavor reappears above I-95. They get all their sort of, spaceship talk, and they're being followed by Shaitan. And again, these helmets look great. Michael Golden, just, one of the all-time greats. And, we get, again, setting a Star Wars style dogfight in familiar settings. They're shooting it out above the highway. Optimus Prime or Convoy is getting, before any of those things actually existed, is getting knocked for a loop in their big, pile up on I-95. Gets the attention of the Air Force. They think maybe there's some kind of drones, and they're flying around this Pepsi sign, shooting it out at each other, and this kind of Star Wars talk of raising deflector shields and stuff. And then a Croyer, who's again, he's like the full-on like Superman of the group. He's the heavy hitter. He's like, if we run, we're toast. The only thing we can do is bring the battle to them. Commander Rand, you and me, we're gonna strap on our jetpacks and go, flying into our pursuers, guns blazing and swords wielding, Shogun warriors looking good. And so, they're firing back. The Shaitan's space cruiser, based on the toy, just like the toy does, splits up into a bunch of pieces for pursuit. And now this is fun. Their chase takes them to a skate park, and they're, weaving in and out among these skateboarders and roller skaters. This is a book for kids, and in the late 70s, give the kids a world they relate to. And so this is the kind of stuff a kid in the late 70s, early 80s would have been into, the sort of like emerging skater culture. A Croyer goes flying out, and he's a powerhouse with that sword. He's slashing these little pieces of the spaceship. Arcturus Ran is doing his part, and Princess Mary is watching and admiring Arcturus Ran in the view screens here. Ran entrusted me with the thorium gun without once questioning my ability. I like that in a man. In fact, I like almost everything about that man. In a superhero team book, you got to have some crushes. Some of the characters have to have crushes on some other characters. It's one of the driving forces, one of the things that keeps these things going, keeps the reader interested. Otherwise it's just sort of, a flat technical exercise. And then Time Traveler shows up. And again, the enigmatic Time Traveler, all powerful, seems to show up at interesting times. And this time he's got a clue for them. He's there with a little bit of help. There's a tracking device on their ship, which is how the Shaitan was able to follow them. So they need to get rid of the tracking device. Another sort of Star Wars plot point. And then he also says there's something even more pressing. Now Baron Karza knows that there are other universes beyond the microverse. How will he react to this news? And now we're back to Homeworld. And it looks like we're in that room again that was in that really cool panel where they had Prince Argon at his mercy. It's like, it was a very cool drawing, so why not bring us back there again? And this looks great. And we introduce a new character, the Duchess Belladonna. And she's a member of the aristocracy. And Baron Karza, not being from, we get a little bit of, palace intrigue, a little bit of politics. Baron Karza, even though he's seized power, he's not from the aristocracy. He's a humble scientist, but she recognizes him as a peer. She talks about his noble birth, and he graciously accepts the compliment because he wants to be part of this, this ruling class. He wants to be part of this aristocracy, and so to get their acceptance is important to him, and to curry favor with them. And so he has, and I guess part of his coup. To get her support. She is, old and close to dying. He promised her a new body from the body banks, the body of Princess Mary. But Mary has escaped, and he does have Mary's brother, Argon, but he said he's got other plans for that body, and we can already see those. He's sort of that genetic experiment we talked about. He's grafted Argon onto, the body of a horse, into a centaur form, taking cues from the toy line, that the Argon toy, just like the Baron Karza toy, was a robot kind of figure that you can take apart and put back together in different combinations. And he has a horse that you can interchange parts with, and then also, create a centaur by combining the two. And so this is how that translates into the narrative of the comic. The Air Force is looking for these drones, but not really seeing any signs of them because they're so small. And they continue to fight it out above this skate park. They crash into the office of the skate park. Get out of here, son, before you get hurt. Sure, right away. Arcturus Ran he's the good guy, and he's telling this kid to, get out of the way because things are getting bad in here. And Princess Mary is manning the thorium gun. She's one hell of a girl. Forget your age, Ran. Concentrate on that wing fighter tracking your tail. And stop worrying that you're at least 1,000 years older than the princess. Having explored the microverse in a state of suspended animation for that period of time, Al. So we've set up the, the romantic subplot. Mary has a crush on Arcturus Ran. Arcturus Ran has a crush on Mary, but because of their age difference, since he's been in suspended animation for 1,000 years, he's over 1,000 years old. He feels that their relationship would be inappropriate. And so that's the barrier that is keeping them from, expressing their true feelings towards each other. And we get another one of these great poster pinups. Baron Karza, very cool looking toy, very cool looking drawing. You see him in his centaur form, just looking amazing. Just the comic itself is really nice, gets better with each issue, but again, it's made under sort of rush conditions. So we get every now and then there's a couple panels that are like, yeah, this is the Michael Golden that we know and love. But in these pinups, this is like full on, primetime Michael Golden. Joe Rubenstein laying down some nice ink here. Yeah, it just looks great. The battle continues. The Air Force is not convinced. They don't see anything. They think this is just another UFO hoax sighting, and so they take off. Now for the final part of the battle, it's a Croyer versus a Croyer. It's his treacherous brother Shaitan versus a Croyer, and Shaitan's got this giant spaceship. He's going to crash into a Croyer, but a Croyer he's in another class from all of the other characters. He kicks this spaceship to a halt, and Shaitan is blown away by this. He stopped us. We're at full forward thrust, yet he stopped us. Warp, you fool, before he does worse than that. That's the power of a Croyer. Now, a more conventional thing might have been like a Croyer to like slash the front of this with his sword and stuff, but somehow kicking is like a left field thing, and yeah, it would be a lot more stunning to Shaitan than slashing a sword. So props for the unconventional solution. And again, we get I really like the way these scenes inside the spaceship are rendered with sort of like the light sourcing from the screens and then the deep shadow behind, and the use of the use of screens on there, and so it just looks great. And these close-ups, again, this is like, okay, this is full on Michael Golden right there. You get to see Michael Golden in all his glory. This is what he does. And they located with this cool little 8-bit graphic. They located the tracking device, and now they're jettisoning it, and they're taking off. It's a great panel. Look, the lighting on there, the rendering. The close-ups of Mary are great. This is like state-of-the-art cartooning. Like this is so far ahead of the Marvel aesthetic at this time. This is much more in line with sort of the larger culture, the larger youth culture. Really, really great drawing. And now they're looking for Bug. What happened to Bug? And there's like patterns that emerge in the Micronauts series where it's flying around in the microverse, and then they got to escape to Earth. They come to Earth, and then they got to escape back to the microverse. So they go back and forth a couple times that way. And then also the thing of like, oh, we lost one of our crew, in the battle, one of our crew's missing. Oh, we got to go track him down. We got to go on a rescue mission. So those are kind of like the motifs that come up again and again to kind of give a little forward momentum to sort of the larger arc of the series. They've located Bug. He's back at Steve Coffin's backyard, so they're going to head back there. They're leaving this sort of Daytona Beach, this boardwalk setting, really nicely drawn here. Just great. The artwork seems like it's even getting better just within the span of this issue. This is just like a great series of panels we're seeing here. And then it's back to the Coffin's backyard. Bug's watching. He's a little bummed out because in that shoebox, Ray Coffin has the remnants of one of the spaceships, and he's like, "Oh, if I could have gotten to that ship, I could repair it and then fly back to the home ship Endeavor. That's going to be that much harder this time." Ray Coffin is calling his director, his boss, and he's ready to show and tell all of the creatures from the microverse, and the way this ongoing story develops is really a lot of fun, really interesting. And then we go back to the skate park for a little bit of comedy as the owner of the skate park's giving his report to the police, and they're like, "You sure this isn't an insurance scam?" The aftermath of this crazy space battle that's taking place in sort of normal Earth settings. Next issue, a body hunt on Homeworld. While the Micronauts roam the Earth, a hunting we will go. And again, one last glimpse of all the different characters to remind you, who you've been watching. So we're up to issue 4 of the Micronauts, Death's Stronghold. Great cover with Baron Karza doing his thing. The same way Darth Vader is sort of the icon of Star Wars. So too is Baron Karza for Micronauts. And so we start with some cool space opera stuff. There's another big military push going on. While the Micronauts are stranded on Earth, life on the microscopic planet of Homeworld goes on pretty much as usual. A hunting we will go. Bill Mantlo, writer. Michael Golden, artist. Joseph Rubinstein, embellisher. Al Milgram, editor. Jim Shooter, editor-in-chief. Costanza, letters. Gafford, colors. And, the same way I note it in Thor's Day Comics, Michael Golden is a co-writer on this stuff. And sometimes the credits reflect it. I think this time it was, more of an oversight than trying to deny him credit, since they have been pretty good about that, establishing that he's like, co-storyteller on this. But I know he did a lot of heavy lifting, and that's part of why he left the book after 12 issues. It was just, really difficult doing all that heavy lifting. And you'll see the change in quality of the stories when Michael Golden leaves the book. Baron Karza's dog soldiers are doing this roundup. There's like a resistance fighters. One of the royalist rebels is a woman named Slug, and they're trying to capture her in this roundup. We get some of the toys. I think these are called the Phobos units. They were basically like a Robotron toy with a different head. This is from the toys also, and then they have this like sort of scooper that like scoops people up, and Slug is disguising herself. We're starting deep underground Homeworld and going up higher and higher to the surface. Reaching ever higher, the ramps become highways. The towers of the rich pierce the azure sky. This then is Homeworld. A planet where no blade of grass, no tree, no flower grows. A world of cold steel and cold-blooded murder. And yet there is warmth to be found in the raging atomic fires of the pit that powers the infernal machinery of that stronghold of death, the body banks. So here's, some more borrowing from Jack Kirby's Fourth World. I think of Micronauts as Jack Kirby's Fourth World in miniature, and so they have fire pits, or at least one fire pit on this sort of desolate world that's just like covered with machinery. And great shot of Baron Karza. Again, so much fun to draw. And Baron Karza shoots off his hand, which is something the toy can do. You press this little button and the hand shoots off. And, strangles him from afar. The thing that Darth Vader does. Leaves him dead and it pops back on. Look at this. I mean, that is a pretty cool, ominous drawing. Michael Golden just showing what he can do. And we find out that Slug allowed herself to be captured because she's going to go undercover in the body banks to try and find Prince Argon, who's rumored to be there. So this is, this ongoing plot that we'll learn more about next issue. Now we're back to the Micronauts. More of this inside the ship kind of stuff with cool lighting, great drawing. Deep shadow, there's some bickering and jokes and whatnot. And so they're looking for Bug. And Bug is trying to get back to them. He knows that in this shoebox is a spaceship that he could possibly repair. He's gonna follow them. I'm not sure what Steve Coffin's shirt says, liquid something. And then he turns on this sprinkler. And again, this is, Michael Golden, he's got his own very unique style that's very distorted and warped, but he is, he's really good about doing his homework and studying, real sprinkler systems to sort of draw them accurately, but still have his style, he really knows what he's doing. Bug gets splashed and yuck, he hates water. They've got water on this world, yuck. They've painted Bug's planet into a corner because they've said, there's no, the trees aren't green on his planet. They've made reference to that. So, when they go to his planet, they're stuck with that. And if they show a green tree, then that's a continuity error. And then they've established that there's no water on his world and he's grossed out by water. So it's like, when we go to his world, we can't show any water. So he makes a break for it, grabs onto the back of their car. And, we're learning some backstory about Steve and Ray Coffin, and that Steve's happy that his dad is showing some interest in him for the first time since his mom died. But it's kind of like, he's just he's only interested because Dad's actually paying attention to me for the first time since Mom died. Sure, but only because now he's got something to show down at the Cape my spacemen found in his backyard. So the truck's going, they pass through. We find out that Ray Coffin, a former astronaut, has a nickname, Orbiting Coffin. So, there's themes within it. And so, Ray's dad is an astronaut, much like Commander Rand on his mission in a sort of, orbiting coffin, in this death-like cryogenic sleep. And, if you were sort of deconstructing this or maybe like this little spaceman that that Steve Coffin finds in his backyard and plays with, maybe it's something that he imagined as a sort of idealized version of his father that he's disconnected from, away for him to connect with his father. You could sort of imagine that as sort of a thematic thing. And from the parking area, only the facade of the vast scientific complex is visible. The legend on the main building reads, Human Engineering Life Laboratories. It was only after it was named that someone realized its acronym was HELL. There's Bug hitching a ride. They're going in. There's a lot of security. Ah, yes, aliens. Wasn't it a close encounter, I think you said? I suppose the current Hollywood fare is responsible for this latest imaginative outbreak of, Dad didn't believe me either, Professor, till I showed him this. Oh my. You have got something there, haven't you? This is Philip Prometheus, who runs Human Engineering Life Laboratories. We'll see more of him next issue. And the Micronauts, it's a lot of sort of chasing back and forth. So Bug is trying to find the rest of the Micronauts in their spaceship. They're trying to find Bug, so they go back to where they last saw him at the Coffin residence, but he's left. So, it sort of, delays this sort of chase, this sort of, cat and mouse. Again, great drawings, great lighting inside the spaceship, sort of flying around. And more of this sort of, Marvel kind of stuff of the average guy's view on everything. I heard tell of Florida mosquitoes, but this and another sighting is chalked up to too many pina coladas. So they're sort of bouncing around in the garage. They smack against one of the walls and crash. So now, they're going to have to spend the next issue repairing their ship. Again, these are ways as sort of the other parts of the plot are unfolding and going forward, this sort of gives the Micronauts something to do. Shaitan and his crew, fly back. We saw them, warp away in the previous issue. We're home. In disgrace, 2 battle cruisers destroyed by my brother Acroyer and his cursed companions. Baron Karza will not be pleased.
I am not pleased, Prince of the Acroyers.
Karza, then you know.
Everything. I hereby sever our alliance. You are useless to me. And the thought wash I used on your people, so that they would think your brother, the true prince, dead, is herewith removed.
No, the Acroyers revere my brother. If they learn that I betrayed him, they will destroy me. Shaitan fucked up. Baron Karza has a 0 tolerance policy and cuts him off. And so Shaitan is, no longer part of Baron Karza's army. And so it's a pretty cool development. I like all the palace intrigue and stuff. And it plays out really well in the later issues. So now they got this little, all right, the Endeavor's dry docked, but we still have enough auxiliary power in the exploratory Astro Station to begin our search for Bug. Biotron will stay here to effect repairs and watch for any sign of pursuit from the Microverse. They're flying around in this. This is, the HMS Endeavor is not a toy that was, sold as part of the Micronauts line, but this Astro Station is. So, a little bit of product placement here. So they're going to be tooling around in this, next issue. Great shot here. Great drawing of Biotron. I referred to him as Robotron earlier in this issue. That was a slip. So he's going to fix the ship while they're off, looking for Bug. Next the Prometheus Pit. Next issue, that's going to be some good stuff. I really like this issue. It moved around a little bit, had some cool, large plot developments, large sort of, the space opera mythology kind of stuff. A lot going on there in this issue, and then, a little bit of ins and outs with the Micronauts, and then setting up, HELL nicely, which is going to really pay off next issue. Each issue, the mystery deepens, gets more and more intriguing, and next issue really turns a corner where it's like, ooh, you know what? I think this might be my favorite comic. And we get this really nice schematic of the HMS Endeavor with, all the little ins and outs of what's going on. There's the scale in comparison to Commander Ran. Lots of verbiage. Another marvelous Micronauts pinup page, the homeworld microship Endeavor. The first faster-than-light microship to be developed on the subatomic planet Homeworld. Its purpose, to explore the microverse. Yeah, I love this kind of stuff. So that's it, issue 4 of the Micronauts. Hi, I'm Tom Scioli, author of Jack Kirby, The Epic Life of the King of Comics. I Am Stan, a graphic biography of the legendary Stan Lee. And coming soon from Image Comics, Jack Kirby's Star Warriors, starring Adam Starr and the Solar Legion. They came from inner space. It's issue 5 of the Micronauts, the Prometheus Pit. I'd say so far this is the best cover of the series. It's dramatic, intense lighting, very attention-getting, very clear, a variety of characters with a looming villain, and makes me want to check out the book and see what's going on inside. And there they are, the Micronauts in the Prometheus Pit. And they made their way to the Human Engineering Life Laboratory. They're following Bug, who got separated from them a couple of issues ago. And they're riding around the Astro Station, which is one of the toys, one of the actual Micronauts toys, unlike their ship, the Endeavor. And it only occurs to me now that Endeavor is a synonym of Enterprise. And so they come to a fence, a high-voltage electrical fence. They've reached the vertical limit of their Astro Station, so they can't fly over it. They have to cut their way through. And it seems odd to me that the Astro Station wouldn't be able to fly over it, but I guess they had to come up with some kind of device to get the drama of cutting, of these little characters cutting through an electric fence, having Acroyer, their heavyweight hard hitter, their Superman, do it. And I like this open air panel at the bottom. And back at the Coffin residence in their garage, Biotron is doing repairs on the Endeavor. It's an electrical vehicle, so he's powering it up using the electrical system of the house. And we met Muffin, Steve Coffin's dog, in prior issues. Now we're meeting Steve Coffin's cat. Now they're in, and the Micronauts are flying through the parking lot and having a flashback to their prior meeting with Steve Coffin, and they're trying to figure out what to do about the dog, this ferocious creature. Marionette, in this beautiful sequence, I really like these kind of like multi-figure sequences of a figure hurtling through the air, like something you'd see in Spider-Man or Daredevil. Just really well executed here. Michael Golden's art just gets better from issue to issue, and just has such an amazing facility. The guy can draw pretty much anything. A note that sort of struck me as a bum note in issue 2 was Arcturus Ran blasting poor Muffin with his laser gun, but they address that here and make it appear as if that wasn't maybe just a miscalculation on the part of the creative team, but that it's part of the ongoing story that Marionette tells him that Arcturus Ran and Croyer, you like to just barrel into situations guns blazing, but what you didn't recognize is that dog, it wasn't some ferocious beast. It was somebody's pet. You really need to get a better read on things. And so she's convinced that she can get this dog under control with some kindness. And Robotron has a bad feeling about this, and he's covering his eyes, but she's figuring that Muffin will be able to lead them to Bug. And so, again, making good use of having sort of miniature characters. If you remember those sort of hand crank window openers, she's struggling with the door, and so they launch a rocket at it, and Muffin jumps out with Marionette riding on the back. The dog's yelping and howling as it runs toward the front door of Human Engineering Life Laboratory. It runs through, and security is busy trying to track them down, but the Micronauts are unable to follow, and so they find a vent outside. Robotron unscrews it, they pull it off and fly the Astro Station inside. Beautiful panel here where Arcturus Ran wonders what time traveler's up to, and then we get this really nice little scene here, like of Bug sort of sitting up high on a pipe watching the drama unfold between Dr. Philip Prometheus, Ray Coffin, and Steve Coffin. And he's got print-ups of Croyers, which Steve recognizes and names them. The creatures from the Microverse on display there. So Prometheus does know about the Microverse. He does have specimens he's brought back, but he's never found a live specimen, and the fact that Steve has interacted with them and actually knows their names is of great interest to him. Bug's watching the whole thing, and he has a bad feeling about this Philip Prometheus guy, and we see that he built a pit. I built this, my Prometheus pit, to find a way to reach those micro universes. And we get a close-up of Dr. Prometheus, and we see that he's kind of like a Bernie Wrightson character. He's got like a strange enlarged eye with all these sort of facets on it. And he tells his backstory, how he was on a space mission in the orbiting space station Starlab. It was bombarded with cosmic rays, similar to the kind that gave the Fantastic Four their powers. It killed the rest of his crew. It spared him, but it damaged his organs so much that they needed to be replaced with bionics. And so he is a cyborg. And I can become like unto a god. Help me, boy. Tell me where those living sub-aliens can be found. Bug is watching all this. Sheesh, this Prometheus character is like a primitive version of Baron Karza. So, I mean, the story in this comic is really gelling, really heating up in this issue. And I like the idea that what happened on Homeworld in the Microverse could also happen here, and that he is sort of, this is almost like we're seeing the origin story of Earth's version of Baron Karza, an earlier point in his journey, and that Earth could end up just like Homeworld, except with Philip Prometheus in charge instead of Baron Karza. Now it's revealed that the security guards that work for Philip Prometheus are cyborgs, looking a lot like the Terminator, even though this predates the Terminator movie by a couple years. He's choking Steve Coffin, and down comes Bug to the rescue. He slashes Prometheus's face. A sub-alien alive? This is exactly what Prometheus has been looking for. Touch that kid again and I'll gut you. And so now we cut back to the microverse. So we have a lot of exciting stuff going on Earth and a lot of exciting stuff going on Homeworld. It's continuing where we left off. People that were rounded up are now being herded into this prison. Karza is talking to Duchess Belladonna, and she's upset that she hasn't gotten a body yet to replace hers. Baron Karza is giving like a little explanation of how things work on Homeworld and describing the economy there, where
cast your eyes on the homeworld I have recreated to fit my own conception. A technological paradise where the rich bask in the luxury of eternal youth. A world where the middle class works endlessly to amass the life credits necessary to purchase immortality, and where those without patience recklessly gamble their hard-earned wages, hoping to win life points in the gaming temples of the shadow priests, but where more often than not they win only a return to their daily drudgery. Of course, there are those who are unhappy with this system I have devised. They are the poor and the outcast, those who have no voice. They exist only to serve, as recruits in my army of dog soldiers, or as organic fodder for my body banks. Those who refuse to accept either role swell the growing ranks of rebellion until my troops catch up with them.
So yeah, describing the sort of economy of Homeworld and how it's this exploitative system that provides for the needs of a small number, while most people are sort of screwed by it. And Slug, the rebel leader, has to find Prince Argon. Only he can rally the remnants of the underground, and that's why she's allowed herself to be captured and go into this prison. We see Prince Argon has broken free, and we see, in full reveal, the alterations, the surgical alterations that Baron Karza has made to Prince Argon in the body banks, merging Argon with his horse Oberon into some kind of centaur figure. And Slug says, "It is Prince Argon, he whom I've come to rescue. But by Dallin and Sepsis, what ungodly change has Baron Karza wrought on him? Is he human still?" And so he is in full fury, blasting away, but it has no effect on Baron Karza, who has a shield, and he blasts Prince Argon with his eye beams, like Dark Side, and just really beautifully drawn. And Slug says, "Karza, you murderess." So she's revealed herself and drawn attention to herself, and Baron Karza says,
I believe my troops have ferreted out the perfect form for your next 1,000 years or so, girl.
"Me?"
Yes, she displayed spirit. Her body will serve splendidly.
So Slug revealed herself, but now Baron Karza, in noticing her, has chosen her to be the new body that the Duchess Belladonna's brain will occupy. We're back at the Prometheus lab. Muffin runs in with Marionette riding. There's a nice reunion with her and Bug. Muffin's barking at Prometheus, but the floor's tilting to kind of push them into the pit, which leads to the microverse. A Croyer busts in, and he's ready to fight. He destroys one of the cyborgs, one of the Terminators. Robotron grabs Steve Coffin's leg to keep him from falling into the pit. There's a crash up above, and like Batman in the Tim Burton movie, Arcturus Ran comes flying in through the ceiling. Great entrances for everybody. We get a preview of Frank Miller's first Daredevil issue, and they're fighting it out, but Ray Coffin heroically comes up and grapples with Prometheus. And so now Ray Coffin and and Philip Prometheus tumble into the Prometheus pit, falling into the microverse. Next issue, The Great Escapes. This comic, which started with so much promise, is paying off on it. It's unfurling and unfolding and more interesting with each issue. The homeworld stuff is compelling. The Earth stuff is compelling. It's really building and is just just a really enjoyable reading experience. And we also get the first letters column, which is very interesting and worth exploring. And maybe I will explore some of the letter columns in a future episode. It's issue 6 of the Micronauts. This cover feels like a little bit of a retread of issue 3's cover. I do like the Kirby crackle around Bug's attack here. And Croyer's destruction of that siren feels like another one of those pieces where, the source material was well researched by Michael Golden before he drew it. And, a dynamic shot of Princess Mary, also known as Marionette. The Great Escapes. We're starting out with a lot of action. The chase is on Philip Prometheus's Terminator army a couple of years before Terminator comes out. They're chasing the Micronauts and Steve Coffin and his dog Muffin. And we have a Croyer looking brave even in retreat. Bugs squaring off. Microtron is firing while he dashes away. There's Arcturus Ran, and Mary is riding astride Muffin. And we get a little flashback to the previous issue. I like whenever there's these color holds. Adds a little extra oomph. Michael Golden is really going to town, rendering these tiers and, putting a lot of energy into the hair. It's, just really fun drawing. And, the action goes on. Microtron short circuits the emergency doors. Bug blasts one of the Terminators in the face and rides the recoil. There's this interesting screen door pattern in the background. The chase continues. And then we cut back to Biotron in the garage at the Coffin residence. And now he's being stalked by Steve Coffin's cat. And then we're back to HELL, Hell, the Human Engineering Life Laboratories. They're trying to figure out what to do next. We have an ad for what was a current toy from the Micronauts line when this was coming up, because Micronauts were a couple years old by the time this comic came out. So you're not seeing an ad for the toys that Space Glider and the various and a Croyer and the various toys that the characters are based on, with varying degrees of fidelity to the original toy. What you're seeing is an ad for, what was, a newer release. The Trons, the Micronaut robot clowns that make you laugh. And I don't think they ever, work their way into the series. And so the Human Life Laboratories are being evacuated. Really nice crowd scene here. There's a military jeep pulling up. They get to the car, and Steve, too young to drive, but, still the biggest person in this group. So he's driving the truck. The chase is on. The Astro Station is pulling up the rear. That's got a Croyer and Bug in it. It makes this crash landing in the back of the pickup truck as it's pulling away. It smashes through the gate. And now they're out and safe. And Steve is mourning the loss of his father, Ray Coffin, who fell into the Prometheus pit with Philip Prometheus in the previous issue. Left for dead. But here they are falling. And again, another cool color hold. And as they fall down this Prometheus pit, they continue to shrink and shrink into and fall into the microverse. Philip Prometheus and Ray Coffin seem like they have a little bit of a détente as they're both sort of facing their own oblivion. Ray Coffin disappears and is now at another part of microspace, and there's this little light that gets closer and closer and closer, and it's revealed to be Time Traveler, the enigmatic, mysterious character that we've seen pop up at various times in previous issues. And Philip Prometheus is falling, closer to Homeworld. Even though they've shrunk down to micro size, they're still giants compared to the Micronauts. And their fall kind of reminds me of the first story in the first issue of Weird Science, the EC comic back in the 50s. It's a really tremendous story, and it's about this guy who just keeps shrinking and shrinking and sort of falling into like smaller and smaller micro dimensions. When he arrives at these dimensions, he's a giant, and then before long he shrinks down to nothing and then finds his way to another like world within a world where he's a giant again and then shrinks. So I feel like it's playing off of that concept. And it's sort of like when Earthlings cross the space wall into the microverse, they shrink, but they don't shrink all the way. So they're giants to the Micronauts. And when the Micronauts come to cross the space wall and come to Earth, they grow, and they're no longer microscopic, but they're still much smaller than a human being. So like the scale kind of ends up being consistent in both worlds. We get this like really amazing shot of Baron Karza in his centaur form, with this cool like stained glass window in the background, trying to make out if there's anything in the pattern. Michael Golden has been putting these sort of like secret messages in the background, and they give a little decoder at the back of this issue in the letters column if you want to find out what those say. I assume there's some Micronauts super fan who has annotated every one of these. And so he arrives at the Temple of the Shadow Priests, has like a little meeting with them. So we're sort of touching on a whole bunch of plot threads, and this issue is very heavy in sort of like the Homeworld space opera stuff, which I like a lot. And I think the creative team does a really great job of balancing those two things, of sort of this idea of these mini space cadets, these mini kind of like Star Wars characters, toy-sized Star Wars characters in a world of giant humans. They sort of do a nice job of balancing that with this sort of like more, full-on space opera. Allows them to have these sort of flights of fancy, but keep it grounded. I like the world building of the microverse and of Homeworld. And so we get this really nice L-shaped or upside-down L-shaped panel of Baron Karza's forces taking off from Homeworld to have an encounter with this giant that's orbiting the planet, this giant figure of Philip Prometheus. Michael Golden is sort of drawing the hell out of these toys. Prince Argon is wasting away in his cell in Baron Karza's prison, and then Slug, the rebel leader, burns a hole through his cell wall, and we see him in his centaur form. Unlike Baron Karza, he can't change back and forth between his centaur form and his two-legged form. But Slug has this weapon, this disruptor, that allows them to, break out of the prison, and she rides on his back. Being a centaur in one of these stories is, the other characters, you can kind of give them a ride on your back. So they ride out of there. Again, really nice compositions here. This stuff's not easy to draw and have it be legible and credible and fun to look at. And we go from, this, really out there sci-fi stuff to suburban in the late 1970s. So they're back at the house. There's Biotron, and they're back at the house just in time for Muffin to bark at the cat and make it run away and leave Biotron alone. And so now the whole team is reunited. Steve helps them. He plugs the Endeavor into the household electricity so the spaceship can charge back up, but it blacks out the neighborhood again. The ship's charged up, it's flying off, and Steve is being chased because there's an all points alert out for this red Chevy pickup truck. And so the chase is on. The Micronauts aboard the Endeavor are, trying to help Steve get away. But the proverbial bug on the windshield. Bug gets on the windshield, but this time smashes it to pieces. Croyer does the thing that Superman does in Dark Knight Strikes Again, he kind of just throws his body, his invulnerable body through the car, through the front and back windshield and just smashing everything. Princess Mary is firing away. A lot of action this issue. Get Spider-Man in one of those Hostess Twinkie ads. The all-new Fantastic Four is here. The boldest, most exciting animated action series is the smash hit of the season, co-produced by Marvel. It's made Saturday mornings on NBC, the place to be. Nuff said. All new, Herbie the Robot. And we have one last page. We get this really nice shot of the cyborg Philip Prometheus floating in orbit around Homeworld, and the Micronaut ships, the Baron Karza's fleet of ships surrounds him. Baron Karza sees a bit of himself in Philip Prometheus and recognizes him.
The mind probes I've sent out reveal that this one met and fought the Micronauts and was driven mad by his encounter with them. Yet I sense an evil in him not very different from my own, evil which I can make use of.
So, really great note to end this issue on. But first, the Macabre Man-Thing on sale April 10th. So next issue is the first crossover issue, the Micronauts crossover with Man-Thing, bringing them more firmly into the Marvel Universe. And again, the progression continues. Each issue so far has been better than the previous one. By this point, I assume you're all in. Like if you're not digging this series by this issue, then I don't know what to say. But I can tell you it gets even better as it goes on. So stick around for that next issue. And yeah, like I said, they have this decoder to decode this writing, that the Homeworld language that Michael Golden has put together. At some point, I'll do an episode about the letters columns, because the letters columns are pretty interesting. And we have a letter from young Kurt Busiek giving mostly thumbs up, rating the various elements of the story on a scale of nifty or no-no. And as he says, the nifties outnumber the no-nos by far. You can sure be proud of yourselves. Kurt Busiek. The Micronauts number 7, guest starring the Man-Thing. Beautiful cover by Michael Golden, possibly the best one so far. It's very moody. I think that Man-Thing in general is just like a fun character to draw, because you can just sort of go nuts with all the textures and shadows. You don't have to adhere to any kind of strictures about proportions or anatomy. You can you have the freedom to draw to your heart's content, and also a very beautifully rendered snake, and just really nice. I like the core of darkness in this composition, that there's just this dark core at the center. And this is one of those sort of reflective issues that you'd get from time to time in this era of superhero comics. And those are some of the best issues. It's a moment for the characters to reflect on everything they've experienced so far and kind of get their strength back, or sometimes lost in the wilderness of indecision, depression, sadness. And so we get that here. And I think Man-Thing is the perfect thematic representation of that. And so they're fishing. Bug is sitting on the bobber, whatever they call that thing, which is a strange position for somebody who professes to hate water. Steve Coffin is depressed because, as far as he knows, his father just died when his father fell into the Prometheus pit. Nice angle here, nice drawing. They're at the Coffin family shack that they go to, when they want to go boating and fishing and relax. It's kind of like their little vacation spot, but there's nothing happy going on right now. Staring into the abyss, thinking about his departed father and the abyss that he fell into. Microtron is watching Star Trek on TV with the Enterprise right next to the Endeavor. drawing parallels between the two series. Star Wars was very fresh and very of the moment, but for somebody like Bill Mantlo or Michael Golden, if you were, like in your 20s at this time, when you thought of sort of, space opera, lasers, fantasy, and things, Star Wars was the new hotness, but most likely you would think of Star Trek and Captain Kirk. And Microtron gives a critique of this show, which he's enjoying quite a bit, which also sounds like an encapsulation of the Micronauts and a meta commentary. When Commander Rand told me to monitor this primitive Earth communicator to see whether any news of our escape from Cape Canaveral was being broadcast, I had no idea it would be as exciting. Why the fantasy elements are so subtly interwoven with reality that it is almost believable. And I think it's even commenting on this panel. You have, courtesy of Michael Golden, you have these very sort of everyday objects, ordinary reality drawn in a very convincing way with subtlety and attention to detail that tells a story with these sort of, sci-fi elements sort of woven in. You have a wooden, kind of rickety table with a can of soda and some, orange slices and an orange. Colored green, giving them the impression of being lime. An ordinary TV set of the day, not a state-of-the-art TV, the kind of TV you would have at your vacation spot, not the one you'd have in your home. And you have this robot from another dimension and the spaceship that he got there in. So yes, fantasy elements subtly interwoven with reality, making it almost believable. That's the statement of intent here. Inside the ship, Arcturus Rand is writhing in his sleep. He's having nightmares. Mary wonders why he goes to sleep in this sarcophagus again and again. This sarcophagus, which is one of the Micronauts toys. Some of the Micronauts would come with this little sarcophagus, very often sort of having like an Egyptian theme applied to the design elements. This crypt, Commander Rand had been sleeping in that for 1,000 years, and so it got very comfortable to him. So even though it's not the most comfortable bed on the ship, it's the one he goes to sleep. It's just sort of habitual and comfortable for him. But Biotron had a psionic rapport with Arcturus Rand over these 1,000 years that they explored microspace, and so he knows Arcturus Rand better than anybody. And you can actually watch Arcturus Rand's dreams on this screen that sort of feeds to Biotron. And so Mary gets to watch his nightmares. And so again, we're looking back, we're talking about, a lost parent. And so we see Arcturus Rand saying goodbye to his departed parents, Dallin and Sepsis, as he's going to depart in the endeavor to go on his 1,000-year space journey. This is issue 7. And issue 7 of New Gods was a flashback story. And in this, we get that too. We get to see sort of the days before issue 1 of Micronauts. We get to see 1,000 years ago, Arcturus Rand leaving on his journey, seeing his parents in their full glory as rulers of Homeworld. And then there's Arcturus Rand's teacher, chief scientist Karza, sort of plotting and scheming to become Baron Karza, ruler of Homeworld, and betraying Dallin and Sepsis. Dallin and Sepsis, who have become religious figures to the modern-day Micronauts, people like Mary and Bug and Acroyer, where to Arcturus Rand, they were just mom and dad. And so we get to see one of Arcturus Rand's space journeys, one of his little, sort of Star Trek missions where he brings this message of peace to the various planets of the microverse, and with Biotron as his representative, because he's in a cryogenic sleep, this whole time, and just communicating mentally via Biotron. So his body is inactive, but his mind is very active during this journey. And the way it's drawn here by Michael Golden, it's kind of like, the ghost, the soul of Arcturus Rand is kind of overseeing all this. But I was kind of thinking about, this origin story of the Micronauts, of Bill Mantlo playing with Micronauts toys with his son on Christmas morning. And I was thinking about Biotron, that when you look at the Biotron toy, it's not so much shown in this drawing, but the Biotron toy has this sort of, clear kind of like glass coffin on his chest that you can put other Micronauts inside. And it looks almost like Snow White's glass coffin. And I thought maybe Bill Mantlo was sort of playing with that toy and got the idea of sort of like a Micronaut who's inside the chest of this robot in a cryogenic freeze, that little, cockpit was actually, like a glass coffin holding a cryogenically frozen Micronaut, and that it would be sort of in this state of sleep, mentally controlling the robot or mentally in contact with the robot. And I thought, oh, maybe that's where Mantlo got the idea for the story beat of this sort of connection between Biotron and Arcturus Ran. And then when it came time to actually draw the comic, Michael Golden figured out a way to represent it that made sense to him, represent that idea. That's a theory I have. And so, they're talking more about this stuff. And then Biotron explains that their mission was kind of doomed from the start because shortly after they'd left, 100 years or so into their 1,000-year journey, Homeworld had invented, warp drive. And so then they were able to cover vast distances in the blink of an eye, quicker than the old Endeavor. And so the Endeavor was sort of plodding its way through space and just being, passed up by everybody else. So the mission was, kind of pointless. But they did eventually make it to the space wall, and there they met the time travelers. They met the Enigma force embodied in the time traveler, this one being who is many. And so we get this, really nice panel here. Get this, encounter with the infinite, the source wall. Meeting the source. Eureka! I found it. Pete Rose batting practice, wearing his Phillies uniform. This is the Pete Rose I remember from childhood as a kid growing up in Philadelphia. And now a fish jumps up to get Bug. Bug, talks about how gross it is being in water. So why did you go down there in the first place? Obviously for, drama and comedy's sake. So finally they see what Microtron was monitoring the television for. They find news of HELL, the Human Engineering Life Laboratory. And so they find out it's been sealed off with a force field, and Steve's remembering the seeming death of his father, and it's making him very sad and making him very fearful, and that's attracting the attention of Man-Thing. So the Micronauts, they're trying to figure out what to do next. Steve's trying to figure out how to deal with his grief. And so it's a genre story. It's an action-adventure story. So how do we embody that within the action? We summon an avatar of sadness and fear and the inevitability of death. And now we cut back to the microverse. Lots of things. For a quiet issue, there's a lot happening here. We're back in microspace. Philip Prometheus is orbiting around Homeworld, and all of Karza's armies and scientists are studying him, seeing what's up, and they discover that he's got an envelope of atmosphere around him that allows him to breathe. Just basically, explaining why he can sort of float in space and be okay. Just a very minimal explanation. Look at this. Love these ads for Star Wars toys where, they're basically drawing the Star Wars character. Some of them look like toys. Some of them just look like the sort of comic book versions of the characters. Really, really fun snapshot of an era. And now Baron Karza is studying Philip Prometheus, and he sees that he is a combination of man and machine. Not too different from himself, not too different from the Micronaut world where it's, the conceit is that it's a world of part man, part machine creatures. So Baron Karza has an idea.
Prepare the subject for the mind merge.
And try to do a mind merge with Philip Prometheus, similar to, the plans that they had for Slug to do a mind merge with the Duchess Belladonna. And so Prince Argon and Slug make their way to the rebels. The rebels aren't sure what to make of them. Are they spies? Is this a trap? It's too good to be true. But one of the shadow priests is there and tells them to cool their jets. One of Karza's shadow priests? I do not serve Karza, Prince Argon, but Homeworld. Now hurry, Karza's dog soldiers search for you. You must be escorted to a place of safety. There you will be told all you need to know for the final battle. So, there's within Karza's ranks, these shadow priests who we had assumed up to this point were just completely subservient to Baron Karza. Turns out there's at least one among them who's ready to stand up to Baron Karza and be instrumental in this final battle against him. We cut to Ray Coffin, Steve's dad, who is alive and well, just lost in the microverse, and he's confronted by Time Traveler, who finds Ray to be worthy, to be a humble man who has the ability to achieve great things. And so Time Traveler chooses him to become a hero, the hero of the microverse and the hero of Earth, which we'll see more of next issue. Steve is just wrought with sadness and runs away, but runs right into the arms of the Man-Thing. And fortunately, Mary is there, and she blasts the Man-Thing. We get a great shot, somewhat echoing the cover. Again, that core of darkness to the composition. And Mary, blasts Man-Thing. Doesn't do a whole lot, but it does shake Steve out of his stupor and realize he'd better watch what he's doing. Steve, run! Bring the others! I can't, Mary. I'm scared. And that's bad news if you're encountering the Man-Thing, because as we all know, whatever knows fear burns at the Man-Thing's touch. And so, if you're feeling scared, Man-Thing is going to try to get his hands on you and set you on fire. Man-Thing is activated. The Micronauts fly into action. This is still a Marvel comic, so even the quiet issue where we're examining our thoughts, you got to have some action. So, Man-Thing is providing that. They fly into action. Acroyer's slashing at him, but finds that his blade just passes through. This monster's a pile of muck, and it smacks him away. It smacks him away next to a snake that is, a giant to Acroyer, and echoing what we saw in the cover of Acroyer being sort of stalked by this snake. Bug flies into action. He passes right through and gets swatted by the Man-Thing, and Bug is scared, so he's starting to smolder. Arcturus Ran and Mary are in the mix. And then we get this really nice ad, sort of reiterating the cover, shrinking it a little bit, making it look even more, making the drawing look even tighter and the composition more sort of mysterious and naturalistic. And it's also kind of nice. So you can see how they were trying to sort of pump up this comic, across the line. And of course, having a big crossover, pumping up both comics. And it also kind of serves a little bit of a story beat too, because we never get to see Acroyer's fight with the snake. So it's nice to get a little reiteration of just sort of the action going on. You could almost imagine the cover being placed as like another page in the story, getting more use. So this kind of does that in sort of like a subconscious way. And Steve makes a run to the fan boat. I love a fan boat, fan boat fiction of this era. They're blasting away at the Man-Thing, but it's not having much effect because he is just like this unfeeling pile of muck. Biotron flies around in this helicopter, which is like a classic Micronauts toy, and gets sort of swatted down into the swamp. Man-Thing makes its way towards Steve because, Steve's the one who he most recognizes as having sort of human emotions, and that emotion of fear is acting as a beacon. And Steve's starting up that fan boat. Kryptonite rocks, a Superman thing in a Marvel comic. And now the fan boat's really blowing. Muffin's in there, the dog is in there with them, barking away. Man-Thing starts to feel something different from Steve. He senses, bravery, something that Man-Thing hasn't really experienced before, and is attracted to it, or maybe and makes his way towards Steve, or maybe he doesn't want to hurt Steve, but his impulses are sort of driving him that way, and so he allows himself to walk into the spinning blades of the fan boat. It's a mystery we'll have to ponder, and the beast, this representation of death, this heavy sort of depression, this sort of shambling, laden, slow-moving character is now vanquished, and now we're released from that grip of depression and fear and sadness, and Steve's smiling away. hostess fruit pie ad with a couple of characters from a classic Jack Kirby Fantastic Four comic. Another ad for the Fantastic Four Saturday morning cartoon that has no Human Torch in it, just Herbie the robot instead. We never get to see a Croyer's battle with that snake. We just see the result. The snake is vanquished. A Croyer's there. And the Man-Thing has reformed himself and skulks back into the swamp. But we get that sort of, post-credits, post-end credits stinger, this kind of surprise that gets you hooked for the next issue.
So this is Earth. What a pleasant world this will be to conquer.
What a pleasant world this will be for me to poop on. Next issue, then shall come a hero. Don't dare miss it. That's a great drawing, a great hook, a great way to use your sort of final panel to throw in a kind of surprising, threatening development. Now there is a human-sized Baron Karza at large on planet Earth. We get the letters columns. Letters columns are just really great for the Micronauts, and we get this profile with, I think, a self-portrait. I can barely make out the signature here, but I think it says Mantlo. So this is Bill Mantlo drawing a picture of himself. Next issue, they call him Captain Universe. You won't want to miss him. A really great issue coming up. In the letters column, somebody asks, how long can you sustain this war with Baron Karza? Al Milgram, who I assume as editor is answering these letters, he says, actually, we're planning to wrap up the Baron Karza war storyline with issue 12, and that that the whole team has tightly plotted out. Bill, Michael Golden, and Al Milgram have tightly plotted out what those next issues are going to be, what's going to be covered in the 12th. And I do think there's a ton of improv, and maybe when they very first started the first couple issues, maybe they didn't figure out every little bit of how the plot comes together, but you definitely feel a momentum and a feeling of things sort of coming together and following a plan and feeling like the narrative is in good hands. So it makes sense to me that there was some sort of multi-issue plan going on, even if maybe they didn't have the whole thing figured out at issue 1. I think by this point they've kind of figured out what's the shape of the last couple issues, leading up to issue 12, so we can tie this thing up. And you see some little hints and clues scattered throughout, starting with the previous issue, that kind of pay off for some of the sort of twists and turns that happen in the final issues. Not every comic is made that way, but I think it really helps. And I try to do that as much as possible. And that was my goal when I was working on something like Transformers versus G.I. Joe, was to sort of have some kind of game plan, even if I didn't end up maybe doing every bit of that game plan, or maybe if I improvised other things. Just going in there with this larger game plan of how this thing is going to tie up, it is just extremely helpful. At the very least, for your morale while you're working on it, to feel to not feel so much like you're wandering through the woods in the dark, not knowing where to go. They have the whole thing sort of, they're basically telling you what's going to happen in the next bunch of issues. They say they're going to wrap up the war with Baron Karza by issue 12, and then after that they're going to have a two-parter with Bug, a little solo Bug adventure on his world, which does come to pass, and then they're going to meet the Fantastic Four, which again also comes to pass. Michael Golden is not present for the Bug two-parter or the Fantastic Four story, except with some really excellent covers that he draws. And his absence is missed. The book loses so much when Michael Golden departs. But we'll get to that when we get to it. They came from inner space, the Micronauts, issue 8. Enter Captain Universe. So this is a turning point for the series. With the entrance of Captain Universe, it becomes a full-on superhero comic. Up to this point, it's what would have been characterized as an adventure comic, superhero adjacent. I would call it superheroes. But here there is now a guy with Captain in his name, and a costume with a cowl. And what really makes this a turning point is the story behind the story. According to Michael Golden, editorial was asking him to try to draw more like Jack Kirby. This issue is the issue where that starts to show, where you like really start to see attempts at sort of more, Kirby-esque line work, shapes, and compositions. There's still, more than enough, plenty of Michael Golden shining through in this. But, you start to see some Kirbyisms and some Ditkoisms. So I do wonder if maybe that was part of it too, to sort of make it look like a classic Marvel comic from the days of yore. I don't know, but I see a lot of Ditko in here too, particularly this stuff right here around Captain Universe. I mean, I can see how there is some overlap between Kirby and Ditko. Really great cover. Some of the body language too. Some of the body language of Baron Karza, seems kind of Kirby-esque. These seem like sort of Kirby-esque shapes. That push to make it more, to draw less and less in his own style and more in Jack Kirby's style, that was one of the contributing factors to Michael Golden leaving the comic as regular interior artist. You've heard of Star Wars. Here's Earth Wars. We have the team of Bill Mantlo and Michael Golden as writer, storytellers, artist. But we have a new member of the team, Bob McLeod, as embellisher or inker. Diana Albers is lettering, and Carl Gafford is doing the colors. Al Milgram, the editor, as always, and Jim Shooter, editor-in-chief. And you're seeing those Kirbyisms pop in. There's a lot of Kirby crackle in this issue. Maybe part of that aesthetic change is also abetted by a new inker, Bob McLeod, and then later Al Milgram comes on board and gets very Kirby-esque. Now, as a fan of this comic, I without knowing any of the backstory, I liked the way it sort of tipped more and more into Jack Kirby territory, just as a Jack Kirby fan. And I felt that it was appropriate to the story, but I can imagine what a bummer it was for Michael Golden, where he was just doing, such great work on this series, creating a new visual language of his own, and then being told, oh, could you change your style? I could see how that would take the wind out of his sails a little bit. So we're continuing where the story left off. There's this big battle outside of Human Engineering Life Laboratories. As Steve Coffin explains to the authorities, it's Baron Karza doing all this, and he fills them in on the whole backstory: the Micronauts, his father, the Prometheus pit, Philip Prometheus falling into it with his father. Apparently, Baron Karza has come through that Prometheus pit to Earth, and now he's human-sized and extremely powerful, extremely dangerous. Again, another shot of Philip Prometheus's cyborg robot army, which again, looking very much like the Terminators a couple of years before the Terminator movie. And now we get this big, blowout splash page. And I think a lot of this, this line work, a lot of these shapes, a lot of these manifestations of energy are part of that attempt to sort of please his bosses and draw a little more like Jack Kirby. And we're seeing it in this big splash. Lots of Kirby crackle around Baron Karza's fists. And, these sort of army dudes coming in feels very Kirby-esque too. But again, it's like, 95% Golden and like maybe 5% Kirby or less. Like there's little Kirby flourishes, but it's still clearly a Michael Golden comic. This little bit with the Kirby crackle, very effective, very, very nice around Baron Karza. And Baron Karza's put up like a force field around the Human Engineering Life Laboratories that he can shoot through. He can shoot at them, but they can't get anything in there. Here's, Barney Fife, Don Knotts screaming. Micronauts are joining the fight. They're going in to fight Baron Karza, and they had a hard enough time against Baron Karza in the past. Now they have to face him with this tremendous size disadvantage. Now we're back to Homeworld in the Microverse. I really like this drawing, the way these microscopic, atomic model sort of goes from no detail to more detail as it gets closer, as you see all the little buildings and things on the surface. Just a tip off to how much this series does owe conceptually to Jack Kirby and to Stan Lee. It takes place in the Microverse, which Jack Kirby and Stan Lee created back in the Fantastic Four and called it the Microverse. And Reed Richards referred to them as Micronauts when they traveled into the Microverse. And we'll see, there's a big crossover with the Fantastic Four already planned. And this is when Jack Kirby would draw the Microverse. These are the kind of shapes and things he would use to depict it. So this is very, with all the toy stuff and whatnot, it's very solidly linked to a Jack Kirby mythology. And then, a lot of the story flourishes are very similar to the Fourth World, Jack Kirby's New Gods comics. Word on the street is that initially they wanted Jack Kirby to draw this comic, but he was not interested and was sort of leaving Marvel around this time, tying up loose ends, working out the last bits of his contract, and then doing that Silver Surfer graphic novel with Stan Lee, which helped him finish out his contract. We get this really beautiful bit of sort of comic book architecture, this nice little space that Golden's drawn. And again, I'm seeing lots of Kirbyism, lots of Kirby flourishes in there, but this beautiful these statues of the deities of Homeworld, Dallin and Sepsis, who are Arcturus Rand's parents, and below them is the Force Commander armor, which is, Dallin was the original Force Commander. This is another one of the famous Micronauts toys. The good guy counterpart to Baron Karza, and they both have sort of removable pieces that you can mix and match between them and mix and match with their horses to create these sort of centaur forms. And we're getting, more of the sort of backstory of that world. Beautiful panel here, the way this close up on Prince Argon, the deep shadows segue into this flashback to Baron Karza before his full transformation into that Darth Vader cyborg, and how he seduced the world of Homeworld to come around to his side, and what he offered them was eternal youth through his body banks, and set up this very exploitative, restrictive system that promises a lot and gives little. Very much like a Satan figure who makes all these promises that appeal to your vanity or your lust or your fears, and just gives you destruction in return, lies and false promises. And here is the father of Prince Argon and Prince Mary having his moment with the time travelers who warn him against siding with Baron Karza and predicting the fall of his reign, but that the royal family would fall to one day rise again. The shadow priests, who up to this point, were part of Baron Karza's entourage, we're learning that they were actually, that the time travelers founded the shadow priests, and they've been working in secret for 1,000 years to undermine Baron Karza's empire that he'd created. And gambling is part of it. You can gamble to possibly get a chance at immortality, but the house always wins, and eventually, if you don't have any more money, you have to start giving up limbs, which will be used in the body banks to give to other people who are better off. The Shadow Priest explains that they've been fomenting rebellion from within all this time, and it all hinged on the return of Arcturus Ran, and that he would be the sort of savior to the world, the son of Dallin and Sepsis. The use of color holds in this comic and in this issue specifically are always very welcome, always look great. And this is a 70s comic, so for all the sort of gee whiz, Star Wars kind of fun and excitement, there's also kind of like the 70s downers, this sort of dystopian world, and the death of Dallin and Sepsis is very grim, very 70s. A moment of pure horror that you wouldn't see in a Star Wars movie, amid all this sort of, all the fun and games. I think that's part of what makes this comic interesting too, that it's not just, a pure, happy fantasy land, that it is punctuated with some moments of real existential dread and terror. All this stuff about prophecies and chosen ones and saviors and whatnot. In those kind of stories, there's a moment where, a hero has to choose whether they want to be a part of, these sort of prophecies and whatnot, or whether they want to reject them. And Prince Argon accepts his place in this larger narrative and dons the armor of Force Commander and becomes the new Force Commander. Now we're back with Ray Coffin, who's still floating around in microspace, communing with Time Traveler, the representative of the Enigma Force. And Time Traveler tells him, "You've got the blood of heroes in your veins. Earth shall have her hero." And he transforms him and sends him flying. And you get a little glimpse of who this hero is. We have an ad for current Micronauts toys. These were the Micronauts toys that were coming out around the time this comic, and these characters will be showing up in later issues. Unfortunately, we never see these characters in any of the Michael Golden issues, which would have been nice. I'm curious to see what Michael Golden would have done had he been part of the writing and drawing of the stories where these characters show up. They're more or less forgettable in the issues that they do show up in, but these toys, they're really amazing toys. They're very cool, very simple, but very memorable. And when I was a kid, again, Micronauts were sort of like the older kids thing. When I was a kid, I was a little too young to be there for the prime of Micronauts. But I remember seeing like the little booklet that has all the different Micronauts toys. And I remember seeing this guy when I was a kid and thinking that he had a pizza cutter on his hand, that you could use your toy to cut pizza. But these were, really cool little toys. And they go for like big bucks now. This guy, I was just at a toy show and I saw this guy going for $100. And I mean, they're tiny. They're just like little action figures. The box art is really amazing. It's these great paintings by, I forget the artist's name. I'll flash his name on the screen, but he was a nephew and protege of Frank Frazetta. Frank Frazetta, he said Frank Frazetta was very guarded about his methods and didn't like to teach other people his methods, but made an exception in his case and gave him a couple hints, showed him a little bit of the magic, a little bit of his process, and he became like an amazing painter of his own. Very much, you can see the connection to Frazetta in his work, but also, kind of created his own flair, his own visual language. And he did, probably his most famous work was paintings that he made of these three characters for the box art of the toys. And I feel like those paintings are kind of what catapulted these toys into this sort of stratospheric space that they occupy. That you see that painting on this little card that's attached to the back of these back of the blister pack that these guys are in, and they just seem like amazing. So yeah, it's Repto. He's half reptile, half human with removable bat-like wings, plug-in laser saw and blaster. Membros, a scaly-skinned android, comes with blaster and plug-in backpack complete with extension pipe for his deadly Hydra laser. Antron, this six-limbed monster, comes with plug-in tools and weapons for each of his 4 arms: hook, eye-bolt neutralizer, and laser blaster. And I assume, like a lot of the Micronauts, that these pieces are interchangeable. And these were sort of original creations from Mego, as opposed to most of the Micronauts toys, which were copies of the Tomy Takara Microman line of toys. Alien creatures with brains that glow in the dark. And so the fight continues. The Endeavor is blasting away at Karza. He's shooting. Again, all this is, very Kirby-esque. Michael Golden employs this trick maybe once per issue of orienting the riders inside the Endeavor and their word balloons to give you that sense of motion and vertigo, being off balance. Akroyer is the one guy that can stand up to this giant Baron Karza. He has the power, but it's still not enough. Mary and Arcturus Ran are firing away. They get blasted. And as they hit the ground, Mary says something about, I'm not giving up the man I love without a fight. The man you love. So their simmering, unrequited love storyline takes another step towards resolution, as is the rest of this series or storyline. Even though it continues for over 100 issues, we're coming to the end of that first sort of 12-issue storyline, which I think of as sort of like a complete graphic novel, and is the best of what Micronauts has to offer. And then that's wrapped up very cleanly, and then it goes on to that sort of next phase, the phase without Michael Golden's involvement. Really nice page by Fred Hembeck, just really a superstar. I mean, I don't know anybody who doesn't love his work. And, you have all the mighty, join the Mighty Marvel Comics chorus line. And I guess, chorus line was a new thing at this point, the musical. The giant Shogun warriors' legs kicking along with the other stars. But yeah, mixed with everybody, you have like the Marvel superheroes. You got Tarzan, who, they were doing licensed Tarzan comics around this time. And you got Baron Karza there in the line, and that's the giant Baron Karza. And then you have a little magnifying glass showing the rest of the Micronauts. Jokes that are very plugged into the current continuity of Marvel. Everybody's shocked at this appearance, this glow, and it's Captain Universe, looking very much like a Ditko character with this sort of atomic thing around him. Could easily be Captain Atom. Here he is, Captain Universe. I like the different scales we have here. And the fight starts, and and we get all these manifestations of energy. Kirby crackle. For a second, Captain Universe kind of looks like the Silver Surfer here, and it's Baron Karza has met his match. It's Baron Karza's pure evil energy versus the Enigma force that powers Captain Universe. And there's a lot of complicated sort of copyright and trademark maneuverings going on with Captain Universe. Marvel had to make sure to make him separate from the Micronauts IPs. Mego, you own this guy. Marvel, we own this guy. He has his moment and then goes on to become just, part of the regular Marvel universe and separate from the Micronauts story. Talking about the Jack Kirby, New Gods, Forever People, Mr. Miracle comparisons between that and Micronauts, I see Captain Universe as kind of like an Infinity Man kind of character. The fact that he can be, that anybody can become Captain Universe. He's kind of this one who is many, part of the Enigma force. And the fact of him being, a power to rival Baron Karza. I could imagine, Infinity Man being used similarly against Darkseid. Although the one time the two did clash face to face, it was kind of a surprise attack. He was not expecting Darkseid, and Darkseid sort of had that advantage and was able to vanquish him pretty easily. But I think if Infinity Man knew what he was up against, he would be a match or almost a match for Darkseid. Acroyer rushes to the scene to help his friends, and Steve recognizes Captain Universe's voice and realizes it's his father, Ray Coffin, who he had thought was dead. So a moment of happiness for him in all this. And again, we get another one of those great color holds. Al Milgrom is the editor on here, and Captain Universe reminds me a lot of Firestorm, who is also kind of like a very Kirby and Ditko influenced character. And Al Milgrom was at the very least the co-creator of Firestorm. And according to Larry Hama, Al Milgrom brought Firestorm, or at least his version of Firestorm, or an early version of Firestorm, or maybe a fully formed, fully fleshed out Firestorm to DC Comics. Even though DC Comics official history doesn't reflect this. Michael Golden says the sort of more superhero-y elements were added against his will. So maybe this was Al Milgrom wanting to bring a Firestorm-esque character into the story. I don't know. That's my best guess that maybe this Captain Universe was was his contribution, or possibly at his urging. Despite all the struggles, Captain Universe is holding his own. The Micronauts flee into the Endeavor, and it's like, get us out of here. We're going to fly back to the Microverse via the Prometheus pit. We've learned that you can go through the Prometheus pit and survive and end up in the Microverse. So we're going to go there. And not only that, we are going to destroy the Prometheus pit after we pass through it, seal up that bridge between Earth space and microspace forever, and Baron Karza is going to be trapped here, and he'll be stuck on Earth and be cut off from the source of his own power. And so Baron Karza psychically gets a sense of this and abandons Philip Prometheus's body that he did a sort of body switch with to become giant. And now, great color hold, we get the essence of Baron Karza quickly flying back into the Microverse right behind Arcturus Rand's crew on the Endeavor. A lot of the dialogue in this issue is talking about how, we're gearing up for the final battle, and the time travelers who refer to each other as brother, the one who is many, they take the power back from Ray Coffin. It's no longer needed. It returns. This Enigma Force power returns to its source, and Ray gladly gives it up. Time travelers, yeah, I guess I've done what needed doing. And now, father and son have their joyous reunion. Earth is saved. He always thought his dad was a hero, and now he gets to see it for real. Next month, the beginning of the cataclysmic confrontation you've all been waiting for. Return to the Microverse. And there we go. You get this nice spot illustration of Microtron and Biotron. With the letters columns, people are asking, for little hints and clues. And yeah, you get the sense that yes, the ending has been very clearly plotted out by this point, with only 4 issues left to go in that, first, major storyline that began with issue 1. And we're getting the hero's journey. They leave the Microverse for Earth, and now they're returning to the Microverse, going full circle. So here it is, issue 9 of the Micronauts. They came from inner space. Arcturus Rand saying, uh-oh, on the cover says it all. And this is one of the issues where we're well into the period where Michael Golden has been asked to incorporate more of a Kirby influence into his drawing, and we're really seeing it. We're seeing it a lot on this cover. Lots of squiggle and some Kirby-esque compositions. And as a Kirby fan, I'm loving it. But it's also one of the factors that drove Michael Golden away from the book, made Michael Golden, want to stop working on it. It was just one of many pressures, and it's sort of an unfair thing to insist that one artist try to draw more like another, especially when it's somebody whose own personal style is so just one of a kind and masterful, like Michael Golden's. Cementing that Jack Kirby look is the arrival of Al Milgrom, the series editor, as the inker, which makes me think that Al Milgrom might have been one of the people pushing for that Kirby influence. I can't say for certain. So where the story left off, again, we have some really nice color holds. We've been seeing those all through the series, and they're just a really nice addition of graphic intensity. The Micronauts have returned to the Microverse. They've spent pretty much the entire series on Earth, and now they're back at the Microverse, and they're heading towards home. Home is where the heart is. This is Spartak, the home world of Acroyer and his people. It's beautifully designed, this sort of double cluster of spiky stone, just really original and beautifully rendered. Bill Mantlo and Michael Golden, writer, storytellers, penciler. Alan Milgrom, inker, editor. Joe Rosen, letterer. Carl Gafford, colorist. Jim Shooter, editor-in-chief. This might be my favorite issue of the Micronauts. It's just it just really speaks to me. Exactly the kind of comics I like to read, and not too far off from the kind of comics I like to make. There's some things in here. There's some story elements and some graphic elements that I feel a kinship with as a creator. And even though I created Myth of Eight Opus without ever having seen any of this, there's a lot of thematic overlap. The Micronauts land, and they don't know what kind of reception they're going to get because a Croyer left as an exile. His brother had sort of had taken his place as the king of the Croyers, and Baron Karza had created a mind wash or a thought wash that made all of them view a Croyer as the enemy and his brother Shaitan as their leader. So they're not sure what kind of reception. Sort of reminds me of the scene when Han Solo lands on Bespin and meets up with Lando, and we're not sure what kind of reception he's going to get there. Of course, this predates that this predates The Empire Strikes Back by at least a year. So now, as the space wall is closing behind him, or as the Prometheus pit is closing behind him, Baron Karza, in again a beautiful color hold, is returning to his body. Back in this, orbiting platform, which is an actual Micronauts toy design, and returning to his body and finding out what's been going on in his absence. We get the answer of what kind of reception the Micronauts are going to get. Hail, Prince Acroyer. So, he receives this kingly welcome. He is, this is his triumphant return, and we meet Cilicia, his betrothed, his true love, who he'd been estranged from, during this period. Marionette and Arcturus Ran are kind of looking at each other, sort of basking in the glow of the love between the Spartaks. And of course, Spartak, Sparta, Spartan, it's sort of a society modeled after Sparta. So they're very warlike and have difficulty showing affection or emotion. It's Shaitan has been imprisoned, and the throne is just basically waiting for a Croyer to reclaim it. And back on Homeworld, get a beautiful shot of Homeworld, and we see Force Commander Prince Argon in his full Force Commander armor, just like the toy. And there's Slug, Death to Baron Karza, and they're just, this big action-packed splash page. Just the rebellion is in full swing on Homeworld. The Shadow Priests have fully joined in the fight. Another, great color hold, and we're seeing, these sparks of energy from them that are sort of a clue to their identity that's been planted throughout this series, at least going back a couple issues. And they're melting these giant Phobos units, I think they're called. An actual Micronauts toy, basically replacing the head from the Biotron toy with a new head and just a new color scheme. So I mean we're back on Spartak, just really beautiful buildings and things. This great looking throne room with all this stone jutting in. Bug puts his hands on the chin of one of the Croyer. She lets him know that is completely unwelcome, and throws him at the ceiling. This shot of Shaitan just really looks so like Ditko to me. And like, I think that's part of like Golden, this thing of like, oh, make it look more like Jack Kirby. He's kind of pulling in like just like a 60s Marvel influence, a little bit Kirby, a little bit Ditko. And again, still, 99% Michael Golden. The planet's shaking from explosions because Baron Karza's fleet has arrived, and we get some nice sort of tilted Dutch angle panels. And a Croyer knows what he has to do. He's about to go into the crystal chamber, but it's something he has to do alone, and it's something that's very dangerous, and his friends are have to sort of part ways with him, and Bug is especially brokenhearted about this. And so the war's waging. The Croyer forces are shooting up at the Armada, and the Armada is raining down fire, destroying the buildings on Spartak, and the Micronauts get in these little spaceships and fly up to do battle, an aerial dogfight. And I love this chamber. I love the drawing of it. this sort of Jungian space. I love the colors. And a Croyer, we get to see what a Croyer looks like under his armor. Michael Golden said that he gave him no nose because just the shape of the helmet didn't really have space for a nose. So it just kind of made logical sense that the Croyer would be these sort of aliens that just have these like nostrils and no actual like nose on their face. Again, a Croyer has to do this alone. He and Cilicia go their separate ways. Just beautiful depiction of the aerial dogfight. Arcturus Ran is firing away at Baron Karza, but Baron Karza has his force field, and Arcturus Ran's ship just crashes against it. Beautiful Kirby crackle, great magenta and blue color scheme as a Croyer is trying to make contact with the living world of Spartak. The world mind, as they call it. So Marionette has witnessed the seeming death of Arcturus Ran, and she's distraught. The battle wages, and a Croyer is, making contact, is, again, doing the dangerous process of trying to contact the mind of this world that he's from. We are one with our world, one with our king. We live or die with Spartak. All the generations, all the years of our race, the legend of the Croyers. In the dim past, a race was driven from its home. The fugitives wandered for millennia as exiles among the stars. Finally, they came upon a harsh, cold, forbidding world of stone. World, may we settle here, they asked. The world responded, I am an old world. I have lost all my children to the stars. To live on me, you must be hard and cold as stone. You must become a race of warriors, yet be faithful to me, and I will ever shelter you. The gentle wanderers agreed, and so came to dwell upon the world which they called by its name Spartak. They became strong, the fiercest warriors in the microverse, at one with the cold stone world, which had given them a home, a world which would not let them perish. I am world mind. So, I mean, this is my kind of stuff. This kind of stuff just, really speaks to me. And this is just a great final panel to end this on. It's just, I really like this sort of, mythic turn that the series has taken as we make our way towards the grand finale. We're at issue 9. And this, big ongoing story gets, wrapped up in issue 12, and I'm here for it for sure. No letter column this issue. Just I think this issue ran, the story ran maybe like a page longer than normal, and so that's perfectly fine with me. Hi, I'm Tom Scioli, author of Jack Kirby: The Epic Life of the King of Comics. I Am Stan, a graphic biography of the legendary Stan Lee, and Jack Kirby's Star Warriors, The Adventures of Adam Star and the Solar Legion. So we're looking at issue 10 of the Micronauts, Defeat. Great cover, great mix of old and new. You have sort of those classic sort of Kirby-esque flourishes combined with these manga-esque Michael Golden flourishes. Just a really great cover, great color, great composition. And yeah, it's issue 10. The finale's issue 12. We're getting into the home stretch. Things really start sort of solidifying here. And it's just kind of exciting. You can feel the approach of the conclusion. Like, it really does feel like everything's coming together. The threads are falling into place. We're going to get a nice payoff. The kind of payoff you don't usually get in a standard comic book. Definitely during this era. High above Spartak, the Micronauts engage the battle fleet of Baron Karza. Your beloved Commander Ran has fallen. Withdraw, Princess Mary, or join him in death. So Arcturus Ran's ship crashed into Baron Karza's force field during a suicide run, and we didn't see what happened to Arcturus Ran. It seemed like he might have been crushed in the wreckage, but he's there. At least, his body is intact. Curse you, Karza. You slew my parents, conquered my world. I'll not let you harm the man I love. Bill Mantlo and Michael Golden, writer, storytellers, artist. Al Milgram, editor-inker. Jim Shooter, editor-in-chief. D. Albers, letters. C. Gafford, color. It's just sort of all-out action, and Baron Karza is decimating the Micronauts' force. Bug and Microtron are squaring off with some of these Phobos units. Bug destroys one of them, but in so doing creates an antimatter implosion, destroying, one of the fuel pods. So he destroys the Phobos unit, but seemingly destroys himself too. And Microtron is just, upset about all of this. Lost one of his friends. Mary has crashed, and now she's at Baron Karza's mercy, along with Arcturus Ran, getting a transmission from Major Dark, who's about to start the ground invasion, the ground war of Spartak. The Micronauts have failed Lady Cilicia. Spartak is now defenseless. Baron Karza has everything pretty much wrapped up. Bug seems to be dead. He's captured Mary and Arcturus, and so he's heading back to Homeworld to pry the secret of the Enigma Force from Commander Ran. Biotron's there, and Shaitan is gloating, and Cilicia, smacks him, and his mask is knocked off, and we see that he looks just like his brother Croyer, except his albino condition. Microtron shows up to report that the other Micronauts are gone, either captured or dead. Karza's fleet descends even now. Meanwhile, Croyer is joining with the World Mind, sort of an ominous apparition to Baron Karza's fleet. I feel like the color holds on this panel aren't quite right. They're not quite doing the trick. I think there could have been a better employment of it, but still, very odd, very intimidating looking image. So, it gets the point across. I just feel like it could be more aesthetically pleasing. Arcturus, you can't be dead. I love you.
How touching. I wonder if you'll still love what's left when I'm through with the commander.
The rebellion will stop you, Karza. So now that's a nice segue to see what's going on back on Homeworld. Force Commander and Slug, with the help of the Shadow Priests, have been victorious against the aristocracy of Homeworld. Open all the cells, free those in the pleasure pits. We must fortify the body banks before Baron Karza returns. What of the rich? Will you fight with us for a return to your precious democracy, where we're treated as equals by the rabble? Never. Karza offered us eternal life. What can you give us? A quick death, parasites. So again, there's that sort of 70s edge. The revolution is now. This isn't your dad's Marvel comic. Filth. For centuries, they've been buying continued existence at the cost of our suffering. No more. The stolen bodies they wore once belonged to friends. So yeah, the rebellion is not fucking around. Never have I beheld a woman like this rebel chieftain Slug. What a queen she would make. Force Commander, Karza's dog soldiers have rallied. Karza's artillery is now commencing their attack, so it's the siege of the body banks. And now Karza's flagship has returned. Things might not be going so great for the rebellion after all. Now we're back on Spartak, and now we're seeing the result of Croyer's merging with the World Mind. And so he's controlling the planet as a living organism. The Croyers are throwing pieces of their planet at us. By the ancient planet pact, I decree no invader may lay claim to Spartak. And so we get these close-ups on Croyer as he's, using the powers of the world merge, the World Mind, and we get like a stat of the previous panel, and that'll be done a number of times. And it's not quite working for me. It's maybe if that were a color hold or something, it might work a little better, but I don't know. I wish they would have, communicated that some other way, but it's not quite, aesthetically pleasing, but it is communicating what it needs to communicate story-wise. So, the play is the thing. I just wish it were a little, I just want another fresh Michael Golden drawing rather than a stat. And so the invasion continues. Really great final panel of the Homeworld fleet, making its way towards the surface of Spartak. Spartak is just such a cool design, the planet itself, and just the way the chiaroscuro of this panel, how, it dissolves into darkness, just really wonderful. The World Mind, World Merge stuff continues now. The planet itself rises against them. Mile-high cliffs rising to smash our ships. Rise, you mountains, from the body of our world to smash our enemies. Half our fleet destroyed in seconds. Land, we'll storm the Acroyers on the ground. Rise, you flames, from the molten core of our world to burn our enemies. And now we cut back to Acroyer embedded in this crystal chamber. Just a really amazing visual. Like I said about the previous issue, this kind of stuff really speaks to me. Now, hoary host world of the Acroyer race, crush the foe in thy deadly embrace. There is a deep roar like the sound of granite groaning or mountains moving at Acroyer's command. This is where, the characters become part of myth and legend. The very myths and legends and gods of their world, they become part of that story. And we're going to see some more of that in the next 2 issues. Major D'Arc is leading this invasion, and it's not going well. The planet is increasing its gravity and sucking the fleet into, chasms within itself. But now Major Dark, looking, as evil as can be, very Wrightson-esque. He's ready to turn up the heat. Heed me, I'm changing the battle order. The Acroyers must pay for their resistance. Spare no one, man, woman, or child. Instead of subjugating, we will destroy. And so we get, panel after panel of just, cruelty and carnage. Again, it's that 70s edge. This has the sort of, Marvel Comics kind of fun feel. And then every now and then there's some of the old ultra-violence thrown in and just really, makes it it's very potent, cruelty on a scale that you wouldn't see from a Marvel villain around this time. Destroy, destroy, destroy. As the blood of its people seep into its rocky soil, the world of Spartak undergoes violent upheavals. The giant cliffs themselves topple on the merciless invader. It's kind of like the Ewoks and stuff, that the Acroyers are being slaughtered. And then Cilicia says, this slaughter will stop. To me, warriors, let Spartak run red with the blood of our enemies. Lots of great Kirby crackle there, great pose. This seems like something that could be straight out of the New Gods. Even the Trons, Microtron and Biotron, have had enough. And Microtron in particular is just ready to fight. And so we get this, amazing splash page of, just like the all-out battle. Acroyers attack! For the Micronauts! Strike for Spartak! Drive the bloody invaders back into space. The Acroyers are victorious, and Cilicia has Major D'Arc at her mercy. Our laws decree that the one who led us to victory must judge your fate. Then spare us, mistress. We are soldiers, merely carrying out the orders of Baron Karzat. You ask me for mercy? Yes, I ask, I beg. Then I will show you mercy. Oh, thank you, milady. You won't regret it. I swear. Here is my mercy, child killer. Acroyer mercy, the swift mercy of the sword. So yeah, these kids are a new breed. This is, very, very Miller-esque. Kind of reminds me of the scene towards the end of Dark Knight Strikes Again, where Lex Luthor is at the mercy of the children of Hawkman and Hawkwoman, and he gets, sort of Spartan justice. It's just a new type of comic that would be edgier, that the sort of vanguard of mainstream superhero comics would be, kind of in harmony with in the coming decade of the 80s. And now Acroyer has returned from his isolation, his merging with Spartak, and just great visual storytelling here. Great panel of his face in deep shadow, contemplating, the carnage. Emerging from the crystal chamber, the king of the Acroyers hangs his head. In his hidden soul, he feels no elation in victory, only sorrow. Many of his people will never sing their war songs again. Many warrior women will never raise up warrior children. The race has suffered. And it can be truly said that it was his brother who brought them to this. Shaitan, you will be returned to the judgment tower, there to await the decision of the elders regarding your fate. I will abide by their decision. From this day forward, I have no brother. It's so easy to condemn me to death, isn't it? You've always hated me because of the same accident of birth that made you a king, made me a freak. an outcast. Never have you heard me call you that, save in your own maddened mind. No, brother, I do not hate you. Not that you'll ever understand that. The Acroyers salute him. Shaitan is right. There can be no victory until Karza is destroyed. My people who have already suffered so much must again be led into battle. Yet, in communion with the world mind, the very force that made of us a race of warriors, I found myself desperately desiring peace. How then can I lead? How can I be king? Acroyer's doing some soul searching. He's, like Isaiah the Inheritor. He's this warrior who's done with war. He's seen too much of it and wants only peace. There are others too who doubt. Microtron, is it worth it? This war, I mean? Look how many have died, including our friends. There is a great emptiness in me. For the first time in a millennium, my circuits cry out to Commander Rand's mind and receive no reply. Won't it ever be over, little friend? Not for me it won't, not till I've avenged Princess Mary. Thus the players play their parts, thus the drama runs its course, carrying all and sundry to their end. Final meeting with the Enigma Force. Take Time Traveler's word for it. Be here for Micronauts number 11. Great color hold work again. One of the things I love so much about this comic is it just really, feels like it's heading somewhere, has a momentum, each issue better than the last. And as we get closer to the end, it really feels like we're heading towards something, very final and very transformative. So here it is, issue 11 of the Micronauts, Saga's End. The name says it all. Great cover. I got to tell you, just as an artist, probably one of the hardest things you can do is draw two centaurs fighting each other. And Michael Golden does it without breaking a sweat here. Really nice job. And just very compelling, simple composition with sort of, looks like, kind of like religious overtones to it. Really excellent work. So the last few issues have really been building to a crescendo, and so we're picking up right where we left off. This probably isn't the best first issue of the Micronauts to read. It really is paying off on everything that's come before it. Although, anybody who read this as their first Micronauts comic, feel free to talk about your experiences in the comments. Bill Mantlo and Michael Golden, writer, storytellers, artist. Al Milgram, editor-inker. Jim Shooter, editor-in-chief. Joe Rosen, letters. Carl Gafford, colors. Baron Karza's command ship descending to Homeworld, to the fire pit. That's what all this flame in the background is. One of the giant fire pits of not Apocalypse, but Homeworld. Arcturus Rand is no longer asleep. They're both captured by Baron Karza. He offers some resistance, gets zapped. And, in the sort of late 70s, early 80s, you'd see a lot of these tall vertical panels, especially with Frank Miller's work, but not exclusively. And they really work for a moment like this where you're communicating, the span of verticality, where you have, some characters down on the planet's surface, this wall, these towers of flame, and then, the perspective, really gives you this nice upshot at a spaceship descending from orbit. A Force Commander is taking command, putting on his helmet, Slug admiring him. They're getting ready for the big final battle for Homeworld. Baron Karza is triumphant. He's gloating. You think you've got me, but you really haven't done shit. He's, and he's displaying his power. He can just sort of hover there, and he keeps Arcturus Rand and Marionette bound in Kirby Crackle. Every panel of this issue is just such a home run. And now the Shadow Priests, again, we saw a little hint of this twinkle of light from the Shadow Priests. And they create this, platform of energy that keeps Karza from descending any further. And Karza explains that, you think that you've taken over Homeworld, but this was all just a trap for you to sort of expose the depth and the breadth of your rebellion, and to flush you out into the open so I can destroy you, because you guys don't have a chance against me. And Force Commander's angry about this idea that this victory wasn't something they achieved themselves, that it was something that Baron Karza allowed to happen as part of some larger devious plan. And now Baron Karza takes his Centaurian form, as it says here, and looking super cool. And again, paying off on what we know about the toys, and this is his final mode for ultimate combat. And you wonder what's the connection between him and Force Commander, because he forcibly grafted a horse's body onto Prince Argon's body as a form of like mockery and torture. But as it turns out, Baron Karza himself can turn into a centaur at will, and he can turn back and forth. And so he explains that it was a form of parody, that a way to sort of humiliate Force Commander by making a lesser version of Baron Karza's own sort of transformative powers, something like that. The battle commences. Force Commander versus Baron Karza, both in their centaur forms. Like I said, not an easy thing to draw, and it just looks great. We got Kirby crackle going like crazy. Is it hours or days they fight on a platform of ethereal energy, suspended above the molten core of the great pit? Time seems to stand still as the two titans clash again and again. And you can imagine a similar battle between Darkseid and Orion, which at this point we hadn't gotten to see. Jack Kirby will eventually draw, the big battle between Orion and Darkseid, but that's not for 6 more years. Slug is trying, as the battle's going on, Slug's trying to get a shot at Baron Karza, but she can't, and the Shadow Priest tells her that, it would have no effect on Karza anyway, so don't even bother. The Shogun Warriors ad, you see the Go Ranger vehicle in among them. Most comic book series don't get to have this kind of climax, this sort of exciting final battle that sort of settles everybody's hash. Force Commander is defeated, but the Shadow Priest explains that Prince Argon is kind of beating himself up. He merely toyed with me. Force Commander is a joke. All my power means nothing. But the Shadow Priests say, no, you played a very important role. Your challenge forced Karza to reveal the extent of his truly awesome power and bought us precious time to reveal this. Really nice sequence here as we see the anguished and suffering Arcturus Ran suddenly become very focused, very at peace, and very powerful. And in a really nice reveal, the Shadow Priests doff their robes, and we see that the Shadow Priests are actually multiple copies of Time Traveler, and that they explain that the Time Travelers are part of Arcturus Ran, that in Arcturus Ran's 1,000-year journey, he lived 1,000 lifetimes in that cryo sleep, and as he communed with the Enigma Force, became part of it, gave it a new shape, where it is him, that he's got this sort of godly aspect that is embodied in the Time Traveler. So Time Traveler all this time has been Arcturus Ran, or a version of Arcturus Ran. And there were hints, I think starting with issue 3, which maybe that's when Mantlo and Golden and possibly Milgram came up with that idea, or maybe it was there from the beginning. But that's where you start to see hints when you'd see the shadow, you'd see like a little glimmer of this kind of energy from the Shadow Priest's robes, and you'd get like a little more of a glimpse of it with every time. And so in the letters column, some people have sort of guessed at this twist, but whether you guessed it or it comes as a complete surprise, I love it. I like those kind of, structural things where there's, little twists and turns that are built in there and hints are given. We are the one and the many, man and immortal, Micronaut and time traveler. We are the Enigma Force. So now Arcturus Ran is in his full power. Really beautiful splash page here. And they fight. and Baron Karza pours it on. And Baron Karza has a lot of power. He has all the power of Homeworld. These furnaces, these fire pits, fuel him. And so he's pouring that energy onto this Arcturus Ran, now in his time traveler form. And it's a lot, but he can take it. And yeah, he's really coming into his godliness. This is a really nice panel here. I'm all about this kind of stuff. This is great. Just beautiful work. We get a little bit of a preview of, or an influence for Rob Liefeld with that sort of glowing eye there. And the battle rages on as all of Homeworld watches and waits. Baron Karza's dog soldiers are, we act when the Baron orders us, dog soldier, and not before. And then the rebels are watching as well, knowing that if this battle goes the wrong way, it's over for them. A lot of great color holds in this issue. We've seen them here and there throughout the series, and now we're going to get, a panoply of them in this issue. Here it represents Karza transforming back into his non-Centaurian form, and he, with that sort of belly missile that, again, is part of the toy, blasts Arcturus Ran right in the face. All of the microverse is at stake here and is being drawn into the battle. The text, there's maybe a little bit of tension between the verbiage and the images. Arcturus Ran is still talking in this sort of stilted, godly language of the time travelers, and especially their sort of like Enigma Force version of the time travelers. But it looks to me like in this page, it's like in the visuals, it looks like this is where the battle becomes personal, and where he, even though he has the power of his time traveler aspect, he's still Arcturus Ran and still has the emotions and intensities of a man. And he's, looks very determined. And this panel here, in the verbiage, he's talking about, we represent everything you hate, Karza, the hope of Dallin Ran and Lady Sepsis for a better world, the love of Ray Coffin and his son, Steve, the nobility of Princess Mary and Prince Argon, the comradeship of Commander Ran and Biotron. We are the light you sought to banish to eternal darkness. Now, I mean, that's all well and good, but it looks to me with these, angry sort of looming heads of his parents, Dallin and Sepsis are his parents. They're the gods of Homeworld, but to him, they're just mom and dad. It looks to me like, he's sort of saying something along the lines of, this is for my mom and dad, you son of a bitch, you killed my parents and I'm going to get you, it seems like this is the point in the battle where it gets personal. And that's not reflected in the verbiage, for good or ill. It's just something I noticed here. It seems like that's the story that the visuals are telling, that we're not still in this sort of high-minded mode. Now we're in the revenge mode, and I'm out for blood. Baron Karza's got some more up his sleeve. He tells Arcturus Ran that he's going to set this fire pit to blow, and it's going to kill me, but it's going to kill you and everybody on Homeworld too, and throws his soul into this pit, and leaving his body, or leaving his armor. The armor is now empty. And in pieces, just as the toy can. You can really see how the toys influence the storytelling here, and casts himself into this pit. Again, we're seeing a lot of Star Wars parallels, but this is after Star Wars, but before Empire Strikes Back, before Return of the Jedi. And this looks a lot like the death scene of the Emperor, who is in Return of the Jedi 4 years after this. A lot of parallels there. And that similar to that sort of abyss that Luke Skywalker throws himself into in Empire Strikes Back, which will be coming out a year from now. I do wonder if maybe there was a trailer for Empire Strikes Back that showed, Luke falling into this pit. But in any case, again, taking advantage of those vertical panels that were such a part of 70s mainstream Marvel Comics. Karza's plan to destroy the planet doesn't work. No, he was struck by another force as mighty as ours. When he reached the peak of his power, a force that hurled his energy persona down into the pit, where he will be consumed, sole victim of his own murderous mind shock. And they find out who it was that had the power to, cast Baron Karza into the pit. Again, all this sort of, mythic, religious imagery and ideas. The skies, look to the skies. Of course, the world mind, the Acroyers have arrived. So the Acroyers have arrived along with their world mind, and the combined force of the Acroyers' world mind and their own army is what cast Karza into the abyss at the moment of his pure destructiveness. The Acroyers have arrived, along with the surviving Micronauts, Biotron and Microtron. And Time Traveler has this to say: I am the Time Traveler, a dweller in dreams. It is said that I appear in times of gathering darkness. The darkness is past, and men again walk in the light. Thus I am no longer needed. Farewell, Arcturus Ran. Though we may never meet again, know that you are always one with the Enigma Force. The Time Traveler rises like a star and is gone. So Arcturus Ran sort of has this moment where he's in complete communion with the infinite. And now the need for that has passed and the time for that has passed. And so those energies leave him. And now he is, once again, a mere mortal. And again, beautiful, color holds on top of color holds here. Arcturus, Commander, I can sense your thoughts again. Biotron, Mary, is it over? Yes, my darling, Karza's destroyed, the war is over. Thanks to you. And Arcturus Ran is just emotionally overwhelmed by the whole experience. Fatigue and all that, but maybe also sort of, religious awe and being overcome with having been one with the infinite. And then what a great final panel. There will be peace at last. Just, beautiful composition, very simple, very small, but, exquisitely rendered. The empty shell of Baron Karza, and then this nice little lettering there. It reminds me of in one of the early Avengers issues where it's like, where Ultron's been destroyed and a little boy is sort of playing with the pieces of Ultron, just sort of kicking his head around, and it's got the Ozymandias poem, written out in, I think, similar text. It reminds me of that. But again, beautiful ending, but the full story of the Micronauts, this is issue 11. It's a 12-part story. So there's still more story to tell. Baron Karza is vanquished, but there's still more to go. The next issue is an epilogue, and it's a wonderful epilogue and a real lesson in how to tell these sort of serialized epic stories. And you could end the series here, or you could end this story arc here, but the epilogue is just so wonderful and just gives such an interesting shape to all of this. And we are accustomed to abrupt endings in comics, but this is not your average comic, and it deserves an epilogue. It deserves a denouement. It deserves a moment for the characters to sort of reckon with what they just lived through. And there's still a couple of surprises in store. I'm Tom Scioli, author of Jack Kirby, The Epic Life of the King of Comics. I Am Stan, a graphic biography of the legendary Stan Lee. And from Image Comics, Jack Kirby's Star Warriors, The Adventures of Adam Starr and the Solar Legion. All three of these books are available by following the links in the show notes below. They Came from Inner Space, The Micronauts, Issue 12, Blood Feud. This is the final issue of the Micronauts. Now, the Micronauts ran for many, many issues, and then even after it ended, there was also a second Micronauts series, Micronauts The New Voyages. So, there's still many more Micronauts comics to come, but this really is the end of the grand Micronauts story that was begun in issue 1. It feels like a complete graphic novel, issues 1 through 12, and could very well have been that. Had they ended it here, I think it would have been remembered as, one of the great graphic novels of all time, a predecessor to Watchmen or The Dark Knight Returns. But they had a hit on their hands. So even though, the original creative team of Bill Mantlo and Michael Golden had sort of told the story they'd set out to tell, and Michael Golden was leaving the series with this issue, if you got a hit, you kind of have to keep it going. This was something I sort of took to heart when I did American Barbarian. I kept it as, a self-contained graphic novel. I didn't, immediately come out with, American Barbarian Part 2. With Transformers versus G.I. Joe, I kind of wanted to get in and get out. I didn't want it to, turn into a regular ongoing series. Same with GoBots. And what I kept thinking of was the Micronauts. I'm a huge Micronauts fan. I love these first 12 issues so much that I've read, I believe, just about every Micronauts comic that's ever come out. I, will always keep coming back for more, even though it's never at this level of quality ever again. And there are some, story developments that happen that kind of undercut some of the, victories and accomplishments that happen in this series. So I feel like having it continue kind of detracts from it in a way. And I've seen that happen with other series where they sort of start out with a really strong initial arc and then fizzle to such a degree that, everybody kind of forgets that they liked the comic in the first place. Blood Feud, really nice cover. Bill Mantlo and Michael Golden, writer, storytellers, artist. Alan Milgram, editor, inker. Carl Gafford, colors. Diana Albers, letters. Jim Shooter, editor-in-chief. So this is the epilogue or the denouement. We had the big, final battle with Baron Karza where Baron Karza was defeated. And now we're in the aftermath of that. The fire pits no longer blaze. The rebels have sort of gathered up the collaborators and are putting them on trial. Karza's armor is hanging in the town square, reminiscent of Mussolini. To the victors belong a world. And so we have this tableau here of Acroyer and Cilicia, Biotron, Arcturus Ran, Microtron, Marionette, Prince Argon, and Slug, the sort of survivors of this war, and basking in the glow of victory, kind of, reminiscent of the final scene in Star Wars with sort of the ceremony with, lots of pomp and circumstance and representatives of the rebel military in attendance. The people of Homeworld have gathered to heap praise upon their savior, Arcturus Ran. And Arcturus Ran is feeling tremendous anticlimax, that the melancholy or depression, this feeling of emptiness after having just sort of communed with God, and become a God himself. And now he just, feels kind of empty and very separate from all that stuff and not sure what to do with all these feelings. And, the rest of the cast are trying to cheer him up. This is an interesting composition where, all the action is sort of going on right here. And then we have, the rest of his centaur body. A very interesting challenge trying to find, ways to fit a centaur into a comics panel, but then leaving room for, some back and forth in the dialogue. But they're all trying to, console Arcturus Ran, tell him, what a great thing he did, something that at this point he kind of only half remembers as if it were a dream. Acroyer announces that it's time for him to go back home. Arcturus Ran is kind of upset about this. "You can't leave, we're a team. What about the Micronauts?" "There is a time and place for everything, Commander. The Micronauts served their purpose. Besides, with our companion Bug dead..." "Enough. Acroyers should never display their grief. Farewell, Commander Ran. World mind willing, we shall meet again. Goodbye, Acroyer." So it's kind of a melancholy parting. The story could have ended in the previous issue. The fact that we get this extended epilogue and denouement is really rare in comics, and it's beautiful. Like it really, the story is just, that much better as a result. So the Acroyer leave Homeworld in their fleet. This was the first Arcturus Ran had heard of Bug dying, and so Biotron, reminds him of the story, how Bug impaled a fuel pod from a Phobos unit with his spear, and the explosion vaporized him. Argon and Slug seem like, they're ready to get a room. They are very much in love, and Arcturus Ran doesn't seem to know how to feel about his new exalted status, and now that like the adventure's over, he's won. He's gotten everything he wanted, and he's not any happier as a result. I felt no joy in seeing Karza slain, despite the fact that he slew my parents and despoiled homeworld. I was merely the tool of the Enigma Force, a force I somehow gave birth to in my 1,000-year sojourn through the microverse, a force that allowed me to merge with it, to become part of a vaster universal consciousness for all too brief a time. And now that it's withdrawn, I feel like a man who's lost his soul. Now we're going to follow time traveler almost as narrator, as he bears witness to the last remaining pieces of the story puzzle falling into place. So, there's a representative of NASA who's sort of picking up the pieces of the human life laboratory and finds this vial filled with fluid and an acroyer within it. He's going to, send it to the higher ups to check out. Really nice bit of description here. The fluid-filled vial trembles in Colonel Macy's hand, stirring the tiny lifeless figure within. The idea of this figure kind of being stirred in there. And at a certain point, there were Microman action figures that were packaged in this way in sort of a tube, not a liquid-filled tube, but in a tube not too different from this. Cool Saturday morning cartoon stuff. Steve Coffin and Ray Coffin now, enjoying this, much better, father-son relationship. They're so much closer as a result of their adventures with the Micronauts. So, they get their sort of, happily ever after. And then we cut to S.H.I.E.L.D. headquarters shown with these sort of, Steranko-esque flourishes, deep film noir going on here. This panel in particular is really something. And it's, film noir, deep shadows with incredible subtlety and sensitivity. And you summon me, Colonel. Obviously, these little hints let you know that it's Colonel Fury. Yeah, Agent M, we got a package from NASA we want you to deliver to a certain party in New York. And so, yeah, the Marvel Universe, we can infer that this certain party is in New York is the Fantastic Four, who were the original discoverers of the microverse back in Fantastic Four number 68, I believe, and the first, humans to journey to the microverse. And now we get this beautiful vertical panel of the Acroyers returning to Spartak. And there's still, even though, the story's pretty much wrapped up, there's still this one piece of the puzzle, this one very important piece that's saved for this epilogue and just really elevates things to like another level. So it's the trial of Shaitan, Acroyer's treasonous brother. He's on trial and Acroyer is supreme in his throne, and we're getting the backstory of the Acroyer people, how they fled the destruction of their world on a giant space ark and took shelter on Spartak and made a bond with the world mind and had to become these sort of, farmers and engineers had to become hardened warriors to survive in this much less forgiving terrain. And then we see a little bit of stuff that would have happened just before issue 1 of the Micronauts, where Shaitan makes the deal with Baron Karza and thought washes the rest of the Acroyers to turn against Acroyer. And this was all Shaitan's doing. Acroyer keeps giving Shaitan opportunities to put things aside and, move forward. And Shaitan refuses. He's angry and challenges brother to a blood feud. And it's considerably risky. Acroyer takes the challenge because he is very reluctant in all of this. He doesn't want to see anything bad happen to his brother in spite of all of it, but his hand is forced by his brother's hatred. And so another beautiful vertical panel with the ship taking off and Acroyer left behind in these desolate plains. He sees a comet flash by and these comets kind of have like a spiritual significance for the Acroyer. He takes it as some kind of sign. Really nice storytelling here. We see him looking up at the comet as the shadow of Shaitan is lifting a giant boulder and throwing it at him. We get this really great battle. Just a really nice back and forth between these two. We get to kind of luxuriate in the combat a little bit. It's really nice. It's it's like a lightsaber duel or something in one of the Star Wars movies, but it just it's really nice, and they get to air all their grievances, and it's just staged very nicely. And a Croyer tries to give his brother a break wherever he can, and his brother does every cheap shot he can and views a Croyer's mercy as weakness, that his time among the Micronauts has changed him and made him less of an Croyer warrior and into more of a Micronaut, sort of a soft-hearted weakling. And Shaitan is ready to take advantage of this, and as a Croyer is at Shaitan's mercy, he reaches for a sword, and to his everlasting regret, he grasps his brother's energy sword. "Now, brother, let there be an end to..." No, Shaitan lunged forward. "I only meant to parry his blow." "So, brother, you still know how to kill?" "Such was not my intention, brother, or my desire." "Bah, you are no longer a true Croyer to regret the death of a foe. I die with no regrets, however, for I go to my grave with my hatred of you intact." "Shaitan, my words fall on deaf ears. He is gone. Are you satisfied now, you cold, unfeeling world? Brother has killed brother. Justice has been won by the sword. By the holy rock, how I have come to despise your justice." So we get this kind of, Cain and Abel story acted out. Arcing across the sky? The Herald Comet. So we get another just really powerful vertical panel of this comet just shooting heavenward across Spartak. "So it would appear, yet the gleaming, glittering, star-like light is no comet, but that ethereal embodiment of the Enigma Force, time traveler. So ends the tale, with but one player left unaccounted for, and that one's passage through hyperspace, whence he was hurled from the midst of battle, is nearing its conclusion midst the towering verdure of far-flung Caliclac, hive world of the insectivorids. The Voyager is home." Next issue, Bug. That's a really, beautiful ending, little, icing on the cake, that this beloved character Bug, who we thought died 2 issues ago, actually, was just sort of, teleported, not incinerated, and just happy to see him back. And he gets something of a homecoming. He gets flung back to his home world, just tied up nicely with a bow. Just a really, really fun ending to a great series. Just some Bug, like all through the series, talks about how he hates green vegetation. It weirds him out because on his planet there is no green vegetation, only red vegetation. So green vegetation just looks very strange to him. But an honest mistake thinking that verdure, which kind of describes like lush green foliage, should be colored green. I can't see how it's an easy mistake to make. But next issue, when we see Bug on his home planet, it is that is corrected, and it is shown as red vegetation. So yeah, great ending. Michael Golden is leaving. You still get to see he becomes the regular cover artist for a good long time on the series. So you get to see his interpretation of Bug's home planet. You get to see his interpretation of the Fantastic Four meeting the Micronauts, but you don't get his storytelling. He's obviously he's as credited, he's one of the storytellers, and the story of the Micronauts is so incredibly different with his absence that it's obvious he wasn't just a guy drawing pictures. He was contributing 50% or more to the storytelling of the story, much like Jack Kirby in his collaborations with Stan Lee and Joe Simon. Michael Golden's a great artist, and this is my favorite of his, my favorite body of work of his. These 12 make just like a really nice statement, one for the ages, one of my all-time favorite graphic novels, comic book runs, whatever you want to call it, one of my all-time favorites, something that I sort of look to as, for comparison when I'm working on things. It was very much in mind when I was working on American Barbarian, when I was working on Transformers versus G.I. Joe, when I was working on GoBots. I wanted to do something that hit the mark the way Micronauts did. So with the end of the first 12 issues of Micronauts, there comes this king-size annual, the Micronauts annual, first collector's item issue. And when I was looking to check out the Micronauts comic, having heard a lot of good things about it, this is where I started. I saw this in the back issue bins, had the nice number 1 on it. I'm like, okay, let me check out let me see what the Micronauts are all about. Had this great Steve Ditko cover. It was all sealed up, so it wasn't until I brought it home that I found out that, hey, this is a Steve Ditko comic. This is Ditko through and through. Bill Mantlow's story, Steve Ditko art, and so it's Ditko inking Ditko as well. And it's sort of an anthology story, like the sort of comics Ditko was doing through the 50s, the 60s, the 70s. Weird anthologies where you'd have like a couple different stories and an omniscient narrator. And so in this case, it's 3 different tales of the Micronauts with Time Traveler as the narrator, as the sort of crypt keeper. We get a little bit of a view of, what might have been with the Micronauts, almost like a 1960s comic, sort of, classic 1960s Marvel comic. You have one of the founding fathers, Steve Ditko, drawing it. Also sort of, what a Micronauts comic is when you take Michael Golden out of the equation, because we have Bill Mantlo, the series writer, we have Al Milgrom, the editor, and so we've changed sort of artist, co-writer with Steve Ditko. So it's got a different flow. I like this comic quite a bit. So first we have an adventure of Arcturus Ran and Biotron. This whole comic, all the stories in this are it's sort of like a prequel to issue 1 of the Micronauts. We're seeing what was happening with the various characters just before the events of issue 1. And so Arcturus Ran and Biotron are flying through the microverse in this kind of Steve Ditko otherworldly extra-dimensional space. And Arcturus Ran is in suspended animation, so we get a little more like a close-up view of some of the things that were just spoken about or hinted at in various issues of Micronauts. Arcturus Ran is in suspended animation throughout this journey. He wakes up intermittently for various adventures. Mostly Biotron does the little tasks for him, but he's able to telekinetically communicate with Biotron. Since this is co-plotted and drawn by Steve Ditko, we're seeing sort of a Steve Ditko version of that, where Arcturus Ran has this sort of ghostly protoplasmic version of himself that comes out of his body like Doctor Strange and is able to sort of carry on these conversations with Biotron. And their ship is kind of tossed around a little bit, and they find the source of the trouble is this planet, which is not too different from Homeworld. It's kind of a pre-industrial Homeworld before Homeworld got covered with construction and circuitry. And they meet Galactic Defender. I am Galactic Defender, sworn guardian of Paradise 3. My first strike was but a warning. Strangers are not welcome on this world. Go. So we get almost kind of like a Star Trek adventure. Arcturus Ran probably had hundreds of similar adventures in his 1,000-year journey. He lands on this planet. It's being defended by a strange character, Galactic Defender, very, very closely modeled after the Galactic Defender toy. That's one of the things you'll find in this annual. They must have sent Steve Ditko a box of toys, Micronaut toys also, because there are a lot of the actual toys show up in this issue. Galactic Defender is one of them. So they have a little battle with Galactic Defender, who has a lightsaber, but in the shootout, his helmet gets cracked. He freaks out, goes back to this, sort of temple. Again, I love these little, Steve Ditko flourishes. It's really nice. I mean, this is one of the better Ditko comics of the era, and it makes sense that Bill Mantlo would want to work with him again later on with Rom. And also, Ditko does at least one more Micronauts annual after this one. Looks really great. And I like Ditko working in a sort of 70s post-Star Wars science fiction milieu. So you have a little bit of, Ditko's sort of classic sci-fi that he's been doing his whole career merged with some of the kind of sci-fi that I grew up with. It's a nice marriage here. And so they get to this strange temple. They find Galactic Defender is collapsed and all these canisters of old men and withering corpses. It turns out that this suit that he was wearing was keeping him from aging, keeping him away from, sort of particles and things, and that this society has been they've sort of cut themselves off from the rest of the microverse, fearing, infection, and that they had sort of like a, totalitarian government that takes over that weeds out, whoever they think doesn't belong. And we get this guy watching as he sort of ages and freaking out about it. So they all, sort of preserve themselves. This guy looking a lot like a middle-aged Peter Parker. So he was the one Galactic Defender left to, protect them from outsiders while the rest of them slept in stasis. Sci-fi explanation of how he failed in his task and let the whole world kind of go to seed, and now it's all collapsing around him and as he turns to dust. Paradise 3 was a world that feared change, Biotron, and changed for the worse because of it. We've seen all there is to see. Let's return to the Endeavor. Tomorrow we land on Homeworld. It'll be good to return to a planet eternally at peace with the rest of the microverse. A little bit of irony there, knowing what we know about, how his world has changed during his 1,000-year journey. We get another, visit from the narrator, time traveler, introducing the next story about Princess Mary, Prince Argon, the Shadow Priests, Baron Karza, and Shaitan of Spartak. So Mary is, running this sort of, danger room course for equestrians, riding Force Commander's horse Oberon, who he later is merged with. They're watching the practice, the training, the exercise, whatever you want to call it. And Baron Karza shows up in his equestrian form. In the series, we don't see him in his equestrian form until the final issue, and it's played as sort of this big reveal that like nobody else knew that this was like a form that Baron Karza could take. So, a little bit of a, continuity glitch here, but I don't mind. Karza's approach kind of spoils the occasion, freaks out the horse Oberon. Oberon knows better than anybody. Mary is thrown from her horse. Biotron catches her. Ditko is a master, and this is like a very engaging, very fun, action-packed story with some really nice emotional beats to it. Also a nice sense of dread and foreboding. If Ditko became the regular artist on Micronauts, it's a pretty big change from Michael Golden, but I think it could have really worked. Karza is kind of gloating and talking about how stubborn, the king, your father, the king, is, and you, the royal family, for rejecting my offers of eternal life in my body banks, and never, blackguard, you'll never corrupt us with your promises of immortality. And so he moves on and gets hit in the back of the head with, wait for it, a piece of horse shit that Microtron was cleaning up. 1,000 pardons, Baron. I was merely cleaning the anti-grav track and let the chips fall where they may, the horse chips. They leave and watch the approach of new arrivals in a spaceship gathered from various worlds, prisoners for Baron Karza's great games. And we see a nice assortment of Ditko-designed aliens, as well as Acroyer and Bug. And, Bug sends the secret signal, which is the thumbs up, to Princess Mary, because she's supposed to be, sort of their contact with the underground, with the rebellion. And then we get this really nice cast photo, this nice drawing of all the various characters we've met, throughout this journey of the Micronauts, including some characters whose issue is out currently at the same time as this comic, issue 13 of the the Micronauts, Bug's father, Wartstaff, and Bug's lady, Jasmine, and then also appearing soon, the Fantastic Four and Psycho Man. Psycho Man, who is an inhabitant of the microverse, going back to the 1960s when Reed Richards and the Fantastic Four were the first Micronauts, and they refer to themselves as such in one of those comics, I think issue 68. Reed Richards says, "We're the first Micronauts." So this was, decades before the Micronauts comic or toy line would exist. Jack Kirby and Stan Lee coined the term Micronauts and Microverse. So we have a little bit of games. The royal family, they don't want to watch it. They want nothing to do with this. And one of the shadow priests drops some hints that they are not affiliated with Baron Karza, as much as Baron Karza may think that to be the case. So it's a prequel. It's designed to be read after you've read the first 12. I happened to read it before the first 12, and so I don't feel there were any spoilers because I wasn't paying such close attention to be like, oh, there's the Shadow Priests, and they're possibly their alliances to the Enigma Force and not Baron Karza. But it did help me familiarize myself with this world. So when I read issue 1, I was off and running. This time the king really stands up to Karza, and Karza and Prince Shaitan talk about how they're going to pull off a coup against the king, and now the king is ready to strike. He pulls out his sword and is demolished instantly by Baron Karza. Really good stuff. This comic, this issue kind of cements those first 12 Micronauts issues as this kind of like legendary thing, this like legendary piece of storytelling, this sort of legend that we can kind of make prequels of and visit from different angles. It would be really hard to make this kind of comic for just any comic book. The Micronauts, what Michael Golden and Bill Mantlo created in those first 12 issues, it really warrants a deeper examination and delving into the story before the story. So now the fight's on. The prince and princess are fighting back. I really like this. This is kind of like something you'd see in like a Wild West comic where she's running and kind of throwing the gun backwards, firing as she's being chased. They get to a wall. Prince Argon gives Mary a boost, and then he throws up his rifle, and then she uses the rifle to help lift him up as he's climbing up there. Sort of devil-may-care, swashbuckling kind of body language. Again, it's Steve Ditko in sort of a Star Wars mode. And now they jump on their horses. That Microtron's been waiting there for them, and they get away, secretly cheered on by the Shadow Priests. Karza comes in, and in sort of Marvel Comics villain fashion, claims that this is all part of his plan. He meant to do that. He meant for them to escape, and that they're going to lead him to the rebellion. And now we have our third and final story, again introduced by the narrator, Time Traveler. And yeah, we get some more of the newer Micronauts toys. We get this Hornetroid in there that Bug and Acroyer are fighting. All the different gladiators in the arena. This guy kind of, is trying to pick a fight with Acroyer and Bug kind of like, teases them, makes fun of them. And now the fight's on. Acroyer lifts this giant guy in the air, throws him at the other guy, and is victorious. Everybody cheers him on. We see a lot more of like Shadow Priests sort of secretly planting the seeds of rebellion. They've snuck in Acroyer's sword and Bug's rocket lance to fight with when they're in the arena. Baron Karza, sort of Roman emperor, gets to preside over the games. Now, some cool alien designs from Ditko, and then we get to see Ditko's rendition of Repto, one of the last Micronaut toys, the guy with the pizza cutter arm. So it's kind of cool. It's kind of cool to see. I mean, I'm a fan. I'm a big fan of the comic, and I'm a fan of the toys too. So it's really nice when you get to see more of the toys show up, because that varies throughout the series, the amount of like the actual toys that show up. So it's kind of cool to see Repto show up, and Bug has to fight him. Hierophant, another toy, another one of the later toys. And a Croyer makes mincemeat of him, throws him at all the other gladiators they had to fight. And so, the battle's over. Bug's like, I'm sure glad I'm on your team. According to tradition, these two, as the victors, should earn their freedom, but which is what the king usually does. But now the king's dead, so it's up to Karza to decide, whether they get their freedom or not. And of course, he gives them the big thumbs down and sends in Hornetroid, another toy from the line, and they get to fight him. Really fun sequence. And of course, a Croyer cannot be stopped. Destroys the Hornetroid with a slash of his sword. Now the crowd is screaming to free them, free them. They've become the crowd favorites. Baron Karza is still insistent that they will stay as prisoners. And he says, tomorrow the crowd will forget anyway. It's fine. And now Mary finally gives the thumbs up signal back to Bug, letting him know that she is, on board. She is their contact. But that, too, is a story already chronicled elsewhere, a tale of the first meeting of the Micronauts on the day Commander Arcturus Ran and his microship Endeavor returned to Homeworld as an unwitting emissary of the Enigma Force after his 1,000-year sojourn in space. The end. So, yeah, we get this, his ship approaching Homeworld. And if you want to start the mythic cycle all over again, you can, begin reading Micronauts with issue 1 right after you finish this. It's a perfect mythic cycle. We get an ad for the ROM Space Knight toy and the first issue of the ROM Space Knight comic, also written by Bill Mantlo, with Sal Buscema as his artist and co-writer. As ROM enters the later period of its run, Steve Ditko takes over as artist and co-writer, and it's very much of a piece of what he's doing here. So if you like what the Ditko-Mantlo combination you've seen here, you'll really like it in the ROM comics too. I'm Tom Scioli, author of Jack Kirby, The Epic Life of the King of Comics, now in softcover. And I am Stan, a graphic biography of the legendary Stan Lee in hardcover and softcover, and Jack Kirby's Star Warriors, The Adventures of Adam Star and the Solar Legion. I'll be appearing this Saturday, September 23rd, at Phantom of the Attic Comics Oakland in Pittsburgh, and I'll be signing all 3 of these comics there. I hope to see you then. And in any event, I'll see you next time for Micronaut Monday.